Tram crash, part 2.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's Tram Crash Part 2.
Yeah.
We like talking about it so much last week that we've come back for another go. It is the Coronation Street 65th anniversary weekend anyway, so suppose we better do something about it.
That's right.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm correct in after I made all my notes and everything. Yeah, people really seemed to enjoy our episode last week, actually, didn't they? Thank you everybody who watched or listened and sent us lovely comments about it. And it seems like lots of people were inspired to rewatch the Crash week. I'm not going to say it solely because of our recommendation.
It was.
But I know some people did. So hope you enjoyed it. It's a good old watch, isn't it? We just needed to get it on decent quality I know. on ITVX or something now. We're not all watching it sort of squinting on YouTube and trying to make out the details. But Gemma, what are we doing today? We talked about the tram crash last week. What's today all about?
Today we're talking about how the hell did they make that?
Yeah, nicely put.
And marketing.
And why the hell did they make that?
Yeah.
And all sorts. It's all behind the scenes shenanigans, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And we've been kind of combing the internet and various publications and whatnot for information about, how from script to scene, as they say. Or what are we calling this? Idea to impact. For the tram crash, and hopefully
we've also scoured our own archives.
We have scoured our own archives as well, and hopefully we're going to come up with some interesting stuff, little tidbits that some of you might not know about. I mean,
maybe
know all of it. I don't know, but yeah, our own archives. We've interviewed a number of Corrie stars and behind the scenes peeps over the years, and Gemma has been very dutifully combing our interviews this week, haven't you, to find some clips from people that we have spoken to in the past talking about the tram crash.
That's right. We've also done a new interview.
Yes, Becky Hindley. Just recently, last week, I spoke to Becky about all things Coronation Street. She, of course, played Charlotte Hoyle, the first victim of the tram crash. Well, before she victim of the tram crash before the tram even crashed.
She was ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Really, she was making it happen.
She was. And last week I spoke to her about that. We will be publishing the full interview with Becky in due course, but you'll be able to hear a few little clips from that in today's episode, so keep your ears open for that.
But if you really enjoy it and you want to know more, you can find it in full on our Patreon.
It is on our Patreon already.
Yes.
Our lucky patrons have been able to listen to this interview in full for the past week. So, go and join up if you want to. If you're too eager to find out, because I'll tell you what, we're not doing it next week, because next week is the Conversation Street Awards. Oh yes, we're at that time of the year. So later on this month, we will put our full Becky Hindley interview. So, I don't really know how this is going to work particularly. I don't want it to sound too much like we're just reading things, but it's probably going to be a little bit like that, because we've found stuff and we're going to tell you about it. But also probably share a few opinions as well. And I don't know, we've not really talked much about it, have we? We're just going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
How did it all start?
I love
the
this.
tram crash. Now, I don't know how much this is actually true, because apparently the idea of the tram crash all came down not to producer Phil Collinson, but Bill Tarmy, who played Jack Duckworth. Gemma, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, he wrote in his autobiography, which I don't know the name of. Probably thanks, Duck.
You don't need to highlight that. We've got it on our shelf, I think. In the
we do. We got it when it came out.
Yeah, in the other room. Is it Life of Riley or something?
Well,
I don't know.
He mentions in his autobiography, I'm going to paraphrase some of it, but I'll quote others, that he was asked by Phil Collinson, is there any way you'd like to leave in particular, like if you were written out? And he's like, I wouldn't really think about it. So I joked. He said, I said jokingly, I could come out of Dev's shop and get squished by a derailed tram. I told Phil he could get rid of a few others at the same time in the fatal crash. I thought he realised I wasn't serious. It's a burden I'll have to take to the grave. I just hope the victims of the tram crash will forgive me for opening my big gob.
Yeah, so apparently, according to Bill Tarmy, he was the originator of the idea of the tram crash. Gemma, how much do you believe this?
I kind of like it. I mean, we've said things that as jokes that sometimes end up happening.
Yeah, I know. I mean, ideas have got to come somewhere, haven't they?
And don't forget, sometimes also I think it's not necessarily that you came up with it, but you're part of the zeitgeist of it's inevitable that somebody would have said it.
Yeah.
So I really do think that the tram going across, I think it was too tempting.
I think it might have been. It just planted a seed, because Bill Tarmy did leave Coronation Street in 2010, just a month before the tram crash. So these discussions about how he wanted to go out probably were occurring at the same time as the germinations of the the 50th anniversary celebrations were
They would have had to
sprouting.
have started planning it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I've never heard anyone else confirm or deny this. We obviously can't ask poor Bill now.
The question is, why didn't he die in the tram crash then?
I'm glad he didn't.
Can you imagine the chaos and the burning and the rubble, and there's Vera picking her way through going, come on, Jack.
Yeah.
Gonna get to the track bus stop.
I don't know whether Liz Dawn would have managed that.
No.
Just hoiking her skirts up and going over and saying, come on, Jack, I don't want to kiss you, got dust all over you. Get yourself cleaned up, love.
They must have thought about killing him off in this and then decided that the far more gentle and romantic way was probably better.
I think, the tram crash was obviously awesome and some of those deaths have gone down in Corrie legend. But I think as for a character as iconic and long-standing as Jack, giving him his own death on its own merit, separate from everybody else, so it doesn't get lost in the chaos of everything else. I think that was probably the right call. But Bill Tarmy did also say there must have been cast and colleagues under sentence of death who thought, thanks a lot, Tarmy, because it all came down to him. But I don't know. He says this, but rumours have it that there was supposed to be a tram crash 5 years earlier in 2005, weren't there? You probably don't remember it at the time, but I vaguely remember there being news stories around 2005 that they were going to crash a tram from the viaduct that's by the Rovers. The one that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
The one that leads into the J. Eccleston and Sons now in Rosamond Street. So a tram was supposed to come off of that, according to an article that I've since found in the Manchester Evening News. And then it was going to crash into the Rovers, destroy that. Characters were going to be killed off. And yeah, that article was published way before this Corrie tram crash. So I think the seeds of the idea were, around the Coronation Street offices for quite a while before it actually happened. But it wasn't until the 50th that they said, okay, let's actually do this. Let's put our money where our mouths is and crash a tram off of the viaduct, and not into the Rovers, but into the corner shop in the cabin.
There must have been so many. They must have so many big ideas in their pockets.
Oh yeah.
At the story conferences, the writers will pitch all kinds of different things. And we know at one point somebody was pitching bird flu.
Yes, you're right, right before COVID.
And they luckily didn't go down that route.
Yeah, and some ideas they will keep in their back pockets for a few years. And I don't want to say one, but there's one that we know, a fairly infamous story from a few years ago that we know very well, was mooted a few years before that.
Yeah, it was
maybe that's the one we'll take to our grave or share with you on the final episode of the podcast.
It just felt like inevitable because if you get high enough in the show and you've got an idea, I don't know how anyone's going to stop you from doing it.
No, exactly. But Phil Collinson obviously wasn't around. Well, he wasn't producer of Coronation Street back in 2005. But I don't know, maybe open a drawer someday. And he found it.
What is this? What a great idea!
And Bill Tarmy's there going, "Oh, that was me. I put that in there.
It's just a joke.
Idea, don't you think?" But apparently it was supposed to be Claire Peacock who was involved in this because I don't think she ever became a tram driver, but she did become a bus driver back in 2005, and she ran into Schmeichel. And that put a dampener on that. I think it put a stop to it.
I love the idea, right? That they were like, what should we do? We'll get Claire to be a tram driver and she'll run into the Rovers and blow it up. And then that got translated with, we don't have the budget for that. Can we just put her in a bus and run a dog over? Okay.
I think that's exactly what it was. It was 2025 ITV budget cuts 20 years earlier.
How much is a dog stunt double? And they're like, you don't need to worry about it. Just run the dog over.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll just get a new Schmeichel.
It's professional.
We've had 3 Schmeichels already at this point. Nobody can tell the difference. No. Well, apparently Metrolink didn't like the idea of Coronation Street crashing one of their trams and making it to look like they were unsafe because these trams cannot come off the rails in real life.
Well, it was supposed to be vandals, wasn't it? So she wasn't. Yes. She wouldn't have been responsible. I think no matter what happened. Does everybody know the story that? I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but I think it's widely known that the whatever company who was involved in the trams at the time, whatever they called themselves.
It was Metrolink, no?
They were like, you can use our tram, but you cannot make out that it was the tram driver's fault.
Yes.
So that's why when the tram driver comes off the tracks, they make a massive deal of him pressing the button to stop. Like,
so there's no doubt in anyone's mind. Not me. Yeah.
Yes, because they didn't want any kind of ill repute of their trams.
This plan, there was going to be vandals who were going to vandalise the track, and that was somehow going to cause the tram to vault from the lines and down into the Rovers.
It's interesting to have a character be the driver. I wonder whether...
I suppose so. I don't think Claire was ever in any danger, going to be in any danger in the original draft of that.
I can't remember if we said it wrong last week, but the tram driver was fine.
Oh yes, we did. So we did. I think we said that the tram driver died last week, but he wasn't. So
he didn't die. He
reprieve for him. He usually needs to come back, doesn't he?
The Tiny Tim of he
should come back for the
15th
anniversary and go. Oh,
yeah, just walk around going, I remember when I blew this up. How did he get out of the tram? You never see him again, do you?
Is that Paul Kershaw? Wasn't it? He was a hero.
He's like, look, you're not a named character. Just get out. Stop crying.
Do you think that they chose the right end of the street for the actual tram crash to happen?
I wonder what the conversations were about not blowing up the Rovers, because they would have had enormous structural damage, wouldn't it? If the tram went into it,
yeah,
and then a lot of it wouldn't have been the original Rovers, and there's just something that feels a bit sad about going, oh yeah, the Rovers was rebuilt. It's not. It's
Rovers. Had a couple of fires, hasn't it? Although I think there'd only been one big one at that stage.
It's got good bones, hasn't it? I think they probably thought to themselves, we can't destroy the building.
I just think you can probably cause a bit more chaos at the end of the street that they actually chose, because we had the tram going into the cabin and the corner shop. Number 13 was caught up in it as well, with all the fire and Jason going in to rescue Simon and Russ. Then you had obviously the bistro itself that caused it. So there was a good three businesses in a house that were destroyed there, and if it had come off where they were originally going to do it, yeah, maybe it would have affected number one as well.
That's
but
like the OG.
What else is going to happen for your fries only or whatever? Wong's Chippy, I suppose it was back then. Who cares about that? Might have hit the medical centre if it was a particularly long carriage train. But I think also, I can't think that anything really big had happened at that end of the street, particularly, or at least for a long time, whereas they'd had the Rovers fire in 1986, and it was nice to try somewhere a little bit different.
Didn't Maya blow up her,
Yeah, I suppose Maya's crash was there, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a few years before. Mm-hmm. And you could also argue, of course, that the original train crash off the viaduct in 1967 was in the exact same place as well. But in a way, for me, that I quite like that, because it's a direct comparison to here's a train coming off the tracks in the 1960s. Look how much better we can do it now in 2010. So I think they made the right call.
It does reflect poorly on Metrolink that they didn't identify that as a dangerous part of the track.
Well, that's true. Twice in 50 years that happened.
Like, if you get run over on a road, they have to put speed bumps in, don't they, the council? So Rosamond Street should be just speed bumps now.
I thought you were going to say, like, speed bumps on the tram track. That's just going to make it worse, Jammer. Can you imagine? Launching over the sides. Yeah, I didn't think that one through, Metrolink.
If two trams come off of the tracks, I think they just cancel the stop.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen a tram going across there since. They'd only... I think it was 2010 that the current opening sequence had started. Although actually, before that, I think the opening sequence beforehand also had a tram going across the track. So they'd kind of given the idea that trams used this track and it was normal to see it for a few years beforehand.
Yeah.
But these days, you never see it. No, you sometimes hear the da-dum, 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 and that's it.
I assume that the Weatherfield, what is it, north or south? I can't remember. North. Whatever. Weatherfield North. You go up some stairs and it goes along parallel, like where the Sainsbury's, and then past the community pop-up shop.
Yeah.
So it goes like parallel to Rosamond Street.
Yeah.
It's not going across anything.
Okay.
Where do you think
I don't know.
Because Peter Barlow went up, he was on, they have had some scenes on a tram that they're making out this is the Weatherfield tram stop.
For Peter's exit, you're thinking, are you?
I think.
I don't know whether that was supposed to be the Weatherfield one, but because I think it was too obviously the whatever Castlefields one.
I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah.
But yeah, I assume it goes like completely What's that?
Perpendicular. Gemma's making a T shape with her hand to the viaduct.
What's that road?
I don't know where it's just.
This is where George's Undertakers is.
Yeah.
This is where Tattoo.
Yeah, Victoria Street.
Yeah, it goes
Victoria
perpendicular to.
Victoria
That's
Street.
what I think.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I think you're right.
think?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Anyway, we digress a little bit.
Can you imagine if they had the tram crash? Oh my gosh, the tram's gone into the tattoo parlour. And
I know.
Like, we don't know what that is.
Not the snooker hall.
Oh, where are we going to go now?
Oh no, it's gone into the pop-up shop. Well, who cares? They change that business every couple of years anyway.
I'm glad it wasn't Hayes Travel.
Right, so as 2010 went by, the thing that I loved about it, one of the many things I loved about it, was how the stories funneled into it. And that was a very conscious decision by Phil Collinson and the other storyliners, that they wanted there to be this big climax on the night of the tram crash, so that everything was leading into it, and then it had just like blast off in different directions. So you had the affair with Peter and Leanne and Carla and all that lot, and then that went somewhere else when Peter was caught up in the injury. You had the John Stape, Colin Fishwick, Charlotte Hoyle story, and then she dies and bang, it goes everywhere else. It was obviously had the Mulvin storyline, which you thought might have been over, apart from Molly had the baby, and then that went on a whole completely different direction when Sally found out that Kevin had been having the affair with her, and then that completely split up that one. But it wasn't really until July that the story conference took place, where all the writers properly threw the ideas together for how this would come out.
They're doing it in December, and they're in July.
Oh, I mean, as far as I could tell, because we've got the Tram Crash DVD, and that's got a few clips.
Not to brag.
Buy it from Amazon yourself for very reasonable prices.
They got the last one.
Oh, shucks.
No, well, I'm sure they've got restock.
Yeah, they had some clips there, didn't they, of the writers around the table, and you saw like a young Jan McVerry and some of the others. Even I think we saw a little bit of Kate Brooks was on one of them, wasn't she? Because she worked on Coronation Street then. Yeah, I think Verity McLeod was there. Did we see any Ian McLeod? I can't remember. But yeah, they were there around this table talking about it. And Mark Wadlow, one of the writers, said, well, I think that the climax is Sally sitting Kevin down and telling him what she's found out about this affair. That he says we got this potential to destroy two families here. So I just really loved how it wasn't just, there's a disaster with a tram crash, how are people going to escape, who will live, who will survive, but it was just perfect to sling the stories that had already been pretty strong during the year off in completely different directions.
I think it's really clever, because they could have just relied on the spectacular, like, you know, the spectacle of seeing this stunt, but honestly, the stories, I mean, and the good thing about the stories also is that they couldn't have progressed in the way they did if the tram crash hadn't have happened. It's not like they just put a tram crash in the middle of a bunch of stories.
No.
Everything links into each other, and like it seems kind of a dumb thing to praise them for, but I do think we've all can think of some examples of where they haven't really, you know, something's happened and it might as well never have happened because nobody remembers 3 weeks later, even though it cost them half the budget.
Well, even if you think, I mean, even the things like the Platt House fire early this year, I mean, it got rid of Max eventually, but
has it left a legacy?
No, not at all. So,
and was what happened? Could it have happened any other way? Maybe.
Yeah, well, absolutely, especially with the whole Joel storyline. So that was kind of when they were putting all the ideas together. But Phil Collinson wanted to make sure that the viewers knew that this tram crash was happening really early on. He's spoken about the fact that hiding everything from the press was almost impossible. So he thought, well, I might as well just get it out there earlier. We can control the narrative here. And it was the 7th of July, 2010. So this was
like the week before they even had the story conference.
So they obviously had some ideas of what they were going to do.
They knew they were going to have a tram crash.
Yeah. 7th of July, he appeared on This Morning and he was talking to Phil and... Who's the other one? Was Holly? Or Fern? Yeah. And he says, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, as we celebrate celebrate the show reaching such an incredible milestone, we'll be using the wonders of modern television to bring you a disaster that will rock the lives of everyone in Weatherfield. At the heart of the drama will be ordinary people at Ordinary Street battling adversity. And he said, we are going to have a tram coming off the cobbles and it's going to wreck everybody's lives. And it's really quite funny watching that clip because you can Philip is just like, what? Dumbstruck by hearing what's going to be happening in Coronation Street in 6 months' time. So early on, we knew that this was going to happen, and then as the year went on, more details started to feed out of that. So you had mid-August, they revealed that the cabin and the corner shop would be wiped out in the disaster. And I wish I could go back in time and think, what did we think of that? Yeah. I mean, you can still go now on the Digital Spy forums and look at 2010 and they've got a thread there from that year and showing people's reactions to it.
What were they saying?
It's a mixture of excitement and cynicism. You know what that place is like, even back then. But yeah, it's a good thing to track down if you're interested in finding out people's opinions at the time. And once again, I say, if only we'd started the podcast a year and a half earlier, we could have been caught up in it as well. So Collinson was just, I would say, a real visionary for the show, and he just wanted to go bigger and better and more bombastic than Coronation Street had ever been before. And it must have been partly so nerve-wracking knowing that you were going to be there for the 50th and there were going to be some expectations for you to do something big and you had to get it right. Oh, yeah. Yet on the other hand, it is like, well, fantastic, I can do whatever I want, and they did basically just get money thrown at them by ITV. I think it
cost more than £1 million.
It cost more than £1 million to do this week of episodes, which is pretty unheard of for ITV soaps for sure.
And that comes from Phil Collinson, who was interviewed for the live reaction show that they did on ITV.
Yeah,
because obviously the stunt was very complicated, and you've got the live element too. So having that was bonkers.
Yeah.
Really bonkers.
He said, I don't know, I can't remember exactly when this Collinson quote was from, but it was in the summer, early autumn of 2010, and he said, look at what this show can still do. You got it after all these years. I've got huge ambition for the 50th. It's going to be Coronation Street like you've never seen it. More spectacular, more expensive than it's ever been. We're steaming towards December with 5 or 6 really big stories. And when Monday hits and the week pans out, the tram crash will have sent off all those stories in completely different directions so that the people who have come to it will feel the need to stay on.
Yeah.
He appeared to have no fear for this massive burden on him.
He was incredibly confident. It was really lovely seeing him just getting excited and telling everybody about what was gonna...
Well, he'd worked on Doctor Who, hadn't he?
Right.
He'd almost been Russell T Davies's right-hand man as far as I could tell there. So he's used to these big budgets and special effects and practical effects and with Doctor Who you had 10 episodes, 10, 12 episodes a year, and you had to get it right then, and you could really, really focused down on those episodes that probably still took a whole year to put together. But he was the right person, I think, to be in charge of Coronation Street at the time, because he had the chops, he had the history and the contacts, I suppose, to get people in who he knew were going to do this justice.
Not to say that the current crop of producers don't have all those talents, but it's definitely a different coming from Emmerdale is a bit different than coming from Doctor Who. What about a herd of sheep stampede down the street? No, we've said before we're not doing anything with livestock.
It is funny how, because after Phil Collinson, the producer was Stuart Blackburn, and he'd come from Emmerdale, so literally every single Corrie producer since Stuart Blackburn and has been an Emmerdale
alumni.
I was going to say reject. I don't think that's the right word at all.
I don't think it is. No,
of course not.
But isn't that? Do you think they were like, right? I've looked at how much this cost, and we're not going to have a Doctor Who person doing it again.
Yeah. Well, I'd still like one day to see what Russell T Davies could do in charge of Coronation Street, because we know he's still a fan, isn't he?
I know. I've said this before about we've had talent in front of the cameras. Special guests. I just would love to see what a special guest would do, who was a writer or a producer or a director.
Well, now Coronation Street this year are like doing these special episodes, don't they? These one-offs. So maybe it's
and also,
today's special episode, guest director Quentin Tarantino at 9 p.m. showing.
Yeah, with extra feet. Who wants to take their socks off?
Blood and feet.
Well, it's going to be half an hour, so maybe there's more scope for it. I heard apparently Sally Devner did an interview with Matt. Who did Little Britain? Those two.
Matt Lucas.
They've got a podcast, and she was on there, and I think she said that, or did she? Am I making this up? Somebody said that Morrissey wrote an episode of Coronation Street.
I can't remember. I think Morrissey might have wanted to write an episode of Coronation Street.
That's right. He wanted to.
Yeah. Apparently they don't just let anyone do it. Otherwise we'd be right over that, wouldn't we? It's funny. It's interesting how these little seeds were planted in the minds of the viewers so long before the disaster took place. Because that's quite different to how Corrie does their big weeks now, isn't it? You don't really, these days, find out about huge disasters 6 months before they take place on screen.
I don't think you need to do that. I think what happened here is it was very early days of fandom. It's not the early days of the internet. It's the early days of like fandoms as we know it, right? And you don't need 6 months for it to trickle through and for people to talk and generate interest, because everything's so hyper fast and we're all connected through social media a lot more than we used to be.
Yeah.
And so you can hype something in, a month if you want to.
Well, this is what they're seeming to be doing with Corriedale now, isn't it? And I know that was announced way, way back. I mean, months ago, probably longer in advance than the tram crash was. But it was very much we're doing a crossover, there's going to be a stunt. We're not telling you anything else about it.
Mind your own business.
It's only been in the past couple of weeks that we've been able to find out what the nature of that stunt was, but it's still very much a teaser of what's going to be now happening in, less than a month's time. We're still pretty much in the dark. But one similarity is that for both Corriedale and the tram crash, deaths were teased, but it wasn't until the week that we were actually sure who it's going to be, and I'm hoping that's going to be the case for Coronation Street as well, and they're going to be able to...
Have they teased to death?
For
Corriedale?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much they have. I think nobody... I don't think anyone's going to be thinking everyone's making this out alive here. I mean, I don't want to spoil the... don't want to spoil the trailer for anyone they're staying completely spoiler free on this, but if you watch the trailer you might think, oh yeah, I think somebody's probably not going to come out this alive. They've said there's going to be a stunt. Come on, stunt equals death.
Oh my god, I can't believe it. I recognise this man. It's the tram driver from 15 years ago. I can't believe it.
The Grim Reaper going to catch up with him.
It's like that poor Japanese guy that went to Hiroshima, escaped that, and then went to Nagasaki. I can't remember which way round it was. But...
Yeah, I know. So the speculation about death, I quite like to kind of segue into talking a little bit about that now. Because this is what people were talking about a lot in the months before the tram crash. I do remember that. Who's going to make it? Who's going to die? At some point, it was speculated that there'd be like tens of deaths through it. So I hope people didn't get their hopes up too much. Or do I say hopes or fears?
Cruel.
I know,
Make him sound like a bunch of people sitting around the guillotine.
I mean, that's what they did in like Family Affairs, wasn't it? When they blew up a whole family.
Oh dear.
But yeah, I think people are a little bit bloodthirsty and it's a bit like rubbernecking on the motorway, isn't it? You think, oh yeah, how many people are going to be killed off?
No, you don't.
But also, no, that you don't think that on the motorway, but you do it in your soap operas, thinking, what they could wipe out families, and everyone then gets their death lists together and kind of hoping that it's somewhat touched upon, even though you're not going to get a full bingo card.
The higher the death count, the more exciting it is, right?
Yeah.
What's been the highest death count of a Corrie stunt? Is it this one?
It probably is this one, to be honest.
It's not really high, is it?
No, the taxi driver being the fourth one is a little bit naff. So, I don't know, Corriedale still could have the potential to beat it, although I still don't think so.
No, I don't think so. If they want to do... I mean, we've talked before about where does this leave the future of stunts on Coronation Street. It really has left them in a bit of a bind for the past 15 years. I'm not going to hold my breath that Corriedale's going to be more spectacular than this. I just can't see how it can be. But I'd be like pleasantly surprised if it was. The only way to up the ante.
Spent on Corriedale, because they were very proudly saying, "Oh yeah, been over £1 million on the tram crash," but we haven't had those kind of figures or any kind of figure for Corriedale bandied about, have we?
The only way to up the ante is to have more deaths than this. That's the only way you can make anything better. But I mean, this year they've lost so many characters out of Corrie. You might as well have blown everybody up, left them till Corriedale and blown them all up then.
Well, I'm glad that Jenny didn't end up having that happen, I'll tell you that. So Coronation Street back in the tram crash days made it very, very clear very early on that not everyone was going to survive here. And on the Corrie website on the 7th of July, when the first bits of information were coming out about it, it said, "Not even our cast and crew know which residents will die, and the drama will continue into 2011 as the people of Weatherfield comes to terms with the tragedy and the dramatic twists and turns that follow."
Ooh,
so they literally, they didn't tell.
On the 7th of July, they didn't know themselves.
I don't think they knew for sure, but it had been reported in the press earlier that year that some of the cast were leaving. So
they knew that Jack was going.
Yeah, we knew. Yeah, everybody knew that Bill Tarmy had decided to leave Coronation Street. Everybody knew that the Peacocks were leaving. Everybody knew that Molly was leaving.
Yeah, because the Peacocks were going to go to France.
Yeah, anyway. That was the story that was going to be there had Ashley not had a viaduct land on top of him. But it's almost a shame in a way that their exits were announced beforehand, because I'm sure that few people were disappointed watching the week thinking, "Oh well, knew it was going to be them." I think it was only Charlotte Hoyle really that was the more of a surprise, but even then some people had guessed it. I saw some people on the Digital Vice forum guessing that.
Well, we watched the like we said, the live special, which is on YouTube, and they were asking the audience, "Oh, who do you think's going to die? Who do you think's going to die?" And everybody thought Molly was going to die.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They were putting little names on the board, weren't they, about who's the favourite, and that was at the beginning of the week, and it did at least show that people didn't know for sure after the first day who it was going to be. So I suppose hats off to them for keeping that completely secret, but announcing a couple of actors' departures in the run-up to it. You kind of have to these days, though, don't you? Because then they need to be able to be looking out for other jobs.
True. But I also think it's canny to have a bunch of people, they're leaving, but how are they going to leave? Are they going to get away? Or are they going to die?
Yeah. Well, I know that some people were definitely convinced that Jack Duckworth was going to make it up to, but not past, the tram crash.
Well, he was gone by then.
Yeah, exactly. But in the in the early autumn, people thought he was going to be a goner underneath the tram. I spoke to Vicky Binns a couple of years ago about her time on Coronation Street, and we're going to put a little clip here where she talks about how she found out what was going to be Molly's ultimate fate in Coronation Street. So I asked her how long before the tram crash she knew she was going to be killed off, and here's what she had to say.
A good 6 months, I'd say, at least before that. That I knew that she wasn't gonna make it in the tram crash. I'd say a good 6 months before that, if not a bit longer actually, because that was quite a long build into that storyline, and that was a new producer that came in that took over that whole storyline and that 50th episode to make it as monumental as it was. No holding back.
Was it the producer's decision at the end of the day that you were to leave the show, or was it a bit of a joint one?
It's the producers. I mean, there is certainly no promise in that show of being in it forever. And I mean, my original contract was 3 months, and I'd sort of gone through about 3 different producers and lots of different storylines. So there's always that chance that they're gonna do a big storyline, and that will be the climax of that particular storyline, which was, they've got to do what's right for the show and what's right for making a big, juicy storyline. And I did, you know, like in the past I had gone up and wanted to do other things and wanted to do some theatre and all that sort of stuff, and really got on with the producer, and he was incredibly supportive around it all, you know, saying it's going to be a really big storyline, it's a great way to leave, if you're ever going to leave, this is the way to do it. And I felt like I had a lot of encouragement and support to play out that storyline, and a lot of trust and faith, really, to have done such a big storyline during the live episode, and to be such a huge part of the 50th one. Let's be honest, I hadn't contributed to the 50 years, you know. I'd done 5 years and drank all the champagne at the end, so that was lovely.
So like we were saying, the Mirror, there were lots of different articles and journalists trying to get scoops, and there's a Mirror article from the 15th of August that says Jack Duckworth will definitely die. He's suspected to be in the joinery when the tram crashes, so it's like quotes put together. And also there's the same article has quoted an insider, and we all love those anonymous insiders,
love
don't
it,
we?
Corrie insiders,
The
Corrie
quote,
sauce.
the quote is, the producers haven't yet decided which characters will be inside, so everyone feels like an axe is dangling over their head. There are rumours that up to a dozen stars could be killed off.
That's right. This is the one that I was saying about earlier. Up to a dozen it could have been. It's going to be a bloodbath, the quote said. Even like Charlie Lawson, who returned to Coronation Street very briefly in the tail end of 2010, wondered whether he was going to be killed off. I'm really very quite surprised that Jim McDonald is still alive and kicking in the canon of the show at the moment. But he was in the show from the 15th of November onwards, and he said at the time, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim is among those to go. I might go to William Hill and see what the odds are.
Yeah, and there was also an article in the Mirror saying that they reckon Janice was going to be killed.
Yeah, well, Janice eventually left the show only about 2-3 months later after the tram crash. So I'm guessing, I haven't looked this up, maybe I should have done, sorry. I'm guessing that Vicky Entwistle's departure had also been confirmed by that point, so they were kind of putting 2 and 2 together and saying that Janice might be splattered in it. Janice Splattersby, as it were. But she was pretty okay. I don't think there was any point that we thought that Janice was in danger during this.
Peril,
was she? No, not really. But as the week started, it hadn't been confirmed.
No, but they were giving out more details, so you knew going into it, like journalists will always get given like brief kind of spoiler synopses that they can share with the public, and sometimes they rewrite them and sometimes they don't. But everybody knew that Molly and Rita would be left clinging for life, that Peter, Ken, Janice and Ashley would be caught up in the destruction, and then they get to, you know, they had the screening and stuff, and Mike Lavelle was talking about.
There was a special screening for the press and the cast. I think it was like the week before it. I think we come to talk about this later. And he came out and he said, well, when we found out who was leaving, it was very sad. But when people read the scripts and realised the magnitude of what was going to be involved in, everyone was excited, even those whose characters are going to be killed off.
So like we've been mentioning, Charlie Lawson. The quote, the odds, because you could bet on this, and I find this is interesting as well. The bookies' odds.
It doesn't feel like it happens very much these days
because there's too many leaks.
Yeah,
you can't have a secret because of the Sun.
I remember they did it with Who Shot Mr. Burns back in the late 90s as well, and you could bet on who it was. And I don't want to spoil anything that's that far along, but the person who actually did it, I think they had pretty wide odds. But the favourites for the bookies, and we don't really understand bookies' odds, do we? But the favourite was Molly, 1 to 50.
So if you put £50 on it, you get a pound
back. Exactly. Absolute dead cert at the beginning of the week that Molly was a goner. Ashley Peacock, 1 to 25. So people were pretty certain then. Interestingly, though, Rita was even. So she was the third favourite. I can't imagine. I don't know what I thought. But
I loved like we mentioned the live episode about with the audience reaction to the tram crash episode on ITV. We watched that, and
talk more about that later.
Anthony Cotton was on it, and he had the same grasp of odds that I do. He was going, if something happens, it can either happen or it can't happen, right?
Oh, yeah, everything's a 50-50 chance.
It's a 50-50 chance. Everything in life is 50-50 chance. I think he was joking, but Everybody's got a 50-50 chance of dying.
Well, Rita did, apparently, according to this. Emily Bishop was there at 6 to 4. Same with Janice Battersby. And then you had Charlotte Hoyle, who was, I suppose, the surprise victim of the tram crash. She was there at 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So that was definitely not confirmed. And she'd only been in the show for 7-8 months at this point, so she was fairly fresh face on the cobbles.
I wonder if anyone made any money off of this. If you were a listener and you were into Corrie, have you ever bet on anything? That's good. That's the first question. Secondly,
anything Coronation Street related?
Yeah, I'm not interested in hearing about the Grand National.
Taking a flutter on the Grand National. Yeah. I've got a scratch card.
Yeah, did you win the lottery? Can you send us some money? Anyway, did you bet on this and did you win anything?
So Charlotte was 2 to 1, so was Sunita Allahan, and she was definitely in quite a bit of peril, wasn't she, Sunita?
She's always in danger.
And then you had like what sort of narrow, I don't even know the words to talk about odds. Less popular choices were then Hayley. Nick was 3 to 1, so was Kieran McCarthy, because they were both going to be in the joinery at the time.
Yeah.
Norris was 4 to 1, so was Bill Webster. Dev 5 to 1, imagine that. Ken 5 to 1. So people thought Ken was in with a chance.
No way, can you imagine?
Oh yeah, it kind of seems quite poetic, doesn't it? 50 years after his first appearance, but 15 years later he's still going very strong. Kevin Webster was 6 to 1 in some odds that we found as well. So I thought that was quite interesting that a lot of them were completely spot on, but not so much with Charlotte.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I was speaking with Charlotte, as we said, just recently. I've got a little clip now where she speaks a bit about her death and finding out that she was going to die and whether she was upset about it. So here's what she had to say about that.
I didn't feel sad because it was such a fantastic way to finish a job on such an iconic programme and the 50th anniversary. I mean, who could have asked for more?
Yeah.
So I was incredibly lucky, and also I'd like to say I was also incredibly lucky because on the live one I was already unconscious. That wasn't my demise, the live one. I was actually found alive and slightly breathing, and they put me on an intensive care and a whatnot. But John Stape, of course, pulled the plug on the.
That was a great twist, because we all thought that he bumped you off, and then like, oh no, slight pulse.
Yes, exactly, slight pulse. Oh my god! But because I was unconscious, I actually didn't have any lines to have to learn for the live one, so that was even better.
So we said that part of what we were going to talk about today was how they marketed the show, and they had a very good slogan, didn't they, which was based on 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which obviously came out a few years previously in 1994, and their slogan was, what was it, four
funerals and a wedding.
Right.
They said, because the wedding was obviously Peter and Leanne, and whether that would take place or not, there was a speculation, but we went into the week thinking, okay, I suppose it reined us in a little bit, didn't it? Especially with all the press speculation that there'd be, dozens of people slaughtered by this tram. And we went into it thinking 4. And I think I do remember thinking that's still quite a good amount. It's an exciting amount.
Yeah.
But and it was a clever. Phil Collinson said it was too good to resist this 4 funerals tag, and it encouraged speculation about who was going to survive and who wasn't going to survive. And speculation, he said, became a big part of the viewer's identification with the drama and therefore enhanced their enjoyment. I'm still going to say, I think that it was a bit of a cop-out. And I can't... I wish they'd actually killed off a 4th person properly, because you had Molly, you had Ashley, you had Charlotte, and then you had a taxi driver in another street that we didn't even see. And it's one of these things it's technically right, but that's probably that's the tram crash week is pretty flawless in my eyes, and this was one of the downsides of it. But it's only a downside because we've been told to expect something. It's not about the week itself, you know what I mean? So
do you think that the taxi driver, they just shoehorn that in to go with the marketing slogan?
Yeah, I think so. I think if they hadn't come up with the slogan, they wouldn't have bothered mentioning the taxi driver.
I thought this was really interesting what Phil Collinson says here about the speculation became a big part of the viewer's identification with the drama. Now, I wish I knew more about the history of soaps and in general and how they're marketed and the impact on like pop culture and fandom. I think honestly, there's a master's or even a PhD in here somewhere. I really genuinely think that's true. When did speculation really start to drive how they wrote and came up with stories? Because he's talking about how do we promote it, and the internet is undeniably a massive driver of speculation and theorising. And it was, when was Lost? When did Lost come out?
Lost, that was 2004.
So that was
3.
We're in, and even before that, you had Buffy. Online fandoms creating a narrative about a show that they can either work with or ignore, right? And Coronation Street here is trying to work with the understanding that people are going to talk about it, and they're encouraging them to, the fans to talk about and speculate. And I wonder how much of that feels a bit like, a bag of worms or whatever, it's a can of worms. They wish they'd never, there's no way of avoiding it, but how much of it actually is detrimental now to storytelling? I think quite a lot of it.
I think quite often you can get your hopes up about something that's been hyped up by either the soap mags or the newspapers or the soap itself.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't quite live up to your expectations,
this was
it kind of puts you off it a little bit. And maybe if they hadn't used this tagline, it swings around about. I'm sure Phil Collinson at the end of the day would say, no, I'm glad I stuck with it.
No, I think it was right
But
too.
watching the live episode, because at this point, Charlotte Hoyle, well, we thought that she was dead, but we thought that, she's going to die. Ashley had died. I think he died at the very end of the Wednesday episode midweek. So in the Thursday live, you're thinking, 2 people are going to die still. And with Peter on his deathbed there, I think that's probably one of the reasons why at the time I remember being so certain that Peter was going to pop his clogs then, because I thought, we've been promised more deaths. And so just a little bit of a letdown, but very clever marketing nonetheless.
It's really interesting because it's like a meta narrative. It's not part of the story. Nobody in the world of Weatherfield knows that this has been said.
No,
we understand it, but it's extra information that we have as viewers that nobody in the show has.
I suppose it's quite similar to when there's a serial killer marketed and you think, who are they going to kill off? And then when you have an Uncle Stephen and his victims are not at all main characters, then you feel a little bit let down by it. But then it's you that's hyping yourself up for it being a main character.
I don't think you can let them off the hook. They know what's happening. I think they can't manage expectations because they don't want to. They want you to tune in.
Yeah.
There's no benefit in them to go, no, it's not going to be that good.
I know. Just before we move on from the deaths topic, I did find quite a funny quote from Malcolm Hebden, who revealed mid-October, so still, not too far away from the actual broadcast itself. Norris, he said that the cast have all been offered a chance to discover whether or not they'd be written out. And he said, this quote was, "The producer's being very cagey. You've got to go and ask him if you're going and he'll tell you, but I haven't been. I daren't go. Barbara Knox, who plays Rita, said to me the other day, this is the last time we'll film in the cabin because we were about to film the scenes where the shop was crushed by the tram. But whether Norris goes with it, I don't know."
That's a really interesting... I wonder how much of that was him being a hype man. Because I think you would have known if you were going to be written out by that point.
By that point, surely.
You would know.
Yeah, but I do like the idea that they were all given the chance to find out eventually whether they were going to...
Well, they're going to know when they get the script.
I wonder how far before the tram crash episodes... But I suppose
you're right. From his
you're right.
Contract.
They filmed. You're right. They filmed, and we'll come to the filming in a little bit. The surrounding episodes in early October, so he must have known back then. So it would have been.
Just being a bit of
it
a
would have been
man.
Probably August, September time, maybe that the cast got the chance to find out. Would you have done it?
Yeah.
Would you have wanted to find out if you were going to die?
I've got a mortgage. Logistically speaking, if your contract is up, right, and contracts run out at different points depending on when you joined. I know that recently everybody's ran out like last Christmas, didn't they?
I don't remember.
And lots of people, and so you know whether you've been given an extension that isn't quite a year, or they've said no thank you. You've got, they all get given a year's contract, don't they?
They do.
Sometimes, so for example, think of one where somebody was on an extended contract where they had run out. That's happened before. I don't know who. With loads of people.
Richard Hawley.
Yeah, Richard Hawley. He stuck around with an extended.
Connor.
Yeah, he died in Coronation Street. Yeah.
The sinkhole.
He knew that he wanted to go, but that's slightly different from. I think you would have known by October if you were going.
I would have thought so.
I think he's adding to the drama here, and also Malcolm Hebden was one of the people, which I think we're going to talk about, who was on the news.
Yeah, we'll talk about.
So he was properly invested in.
I think everybody
hamming it up and really enjoying properly vamping and
I got
having
the
a brilliant
impression
time.
that everybody knew that they were on their way to something really, really special with this, and everyone was really on board with hyping it and genuinely saying it was going to be a cracking week.
This is a really good example of ITV investing in and standing behind their product, which I don't think they do anymore. I'm going to say, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't think ITV has got enough faith or pride in soaps in general and Coronation Street as a flagship show. I think they take it for granted. They don't appreciate what they've got. But you look at how Corrie's treated now, they don't even have a Christmas party anymore. Back for the 50th anniversary, they were making fake news casts and doing live.
Let's see what they do for this Corridale. I think
They
that's
better
gonna
pull
be
their
the
bloody
testing
fingers out,
ground, isn't it? And yeah, they did have a Christmas party just last week, didn't they?
They didn't pay for it.
Oh, as far as apparently not. Anyway, we must move on from talking about the deaths, but I do want to put a little clip in here about probably my favourite death of the week, which was Sally and Molly under the rubble. Well, Molly was under the rubble, Sally was there, helping her out, giving her a bit of comfort as she was lying there bleeding out, until she finds out that Kevin was the one that Molly had been having an affair with, and the father of Jack, baby Jack. So when I spoke to Sally Dynevor 5 years ago, I asked her what it was like to play a scene where the character Sally would be leaving Molly to die. Here's what she had to say.
Well, do you know, I've not really thought about it like that, because I kind of thought that she would have died anyway. But, there was nothing that Sally could do.
She wasn't there to hold her hand in the final moments, though, was she?
She was, but as soon as she found that out, she pulled her hand away. But it was it was great working with Vicky. She was so good, and I'm really proud of that scene, actually.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, and you've already said it, that that death was one of the best in Corrie.
It was a highlight of the week, and I'm going to say one of Corrie's definite death highlights. And even though we knew that Molly was going to die, well, pretty certain beforehand, it wasn't spoiled.
We didn't know.
We kind of knew, didn't we?
All right.
But it wasn't spoiled because the death was so epic.
Well, don't forget that both she and the Peacocks were sort of, I'm going. Molly had left Tyrone, didn't she, at the beginning of the week? So
yes.
If you were thinking, I've heard that Vicky Binns is going, you might have been lulled into a false sense of security going, oh, well, they're not going to kill a mum with a baby. She's going to leave the street.
Well, they did. Heartless, weren't they?
Not a baby, though. The baby's fine.
Well, luckily, the fact that their security around the programme was so tight beforehand, it did certainly help. Too many spoilers coming out, even for the people that really wanted to know what was going on, they couldn't, and Phil Collinson had just totally clamped down on this, and he wanted to stamp out the possibility of any possible leaks coming out that Corrie didn't want to get out to the public. And I think they did a really, really good job. Collinson said, I want people to settle down in front of their telly on December the 6th and let us tell them a story they haven't heard told in advance via the media, told in a spectacular yet human way. I hate leaks, and although I've told you a few things to create excitement in advance, there will be utter secrecy from now on, because I think that the drip of leaks to the press just cheats the viewer. That's so fascinating to me now.
Read the next bit.
He said, my heart sinks when I open a paper and see the stories.
Yeah.
And I know that Coronation Street don't like leaks now. We've been to press days, and the people running them have asked the papers, please don't tell anybody what we're about to tell you. And on the whole, they don't.
I mean, the people in that room, I think, are not the ones leaking the stories.
No, I think that the leaks come elsewhere. But the fact that they probably spent a bit of extra money and a bit of this £1 million+ to do what they could to tighten the security, I'm going to say that was 100% worth it. But it was just lovely hearing from a producer with a similar stance to spoilers, I suppose, as we do. I don't like any spoilers, but I get that they have to happen, and you just get the idea that he wanted the viewers to be nicely surprised, and that's what I want when I sit down and watch any episode of Coronation Street. I want these things to happen that I've got no idea that they're on the horizon.
He said, "I've really put my foot down. I hate to know what's coming when I'm watching some other show, and our viewers feel the same."
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So they even went as far as to prevent some of the cast members, well, a lot of the cast members, from knowing the full details of the live episode. So they were reportedly only given their own characters' lines. They were kept in the dark about the other characters' stories. You had watermarks, scripts with the cast names on, and apparently they would be reprimanded if these scripts were found lying around. So everyone was probably terrified, but not terrified, but they wanted to also. I think everybody was like, yeah, let's keep the secret. Let's not let this get out. And it was worth it.
I mean, I'm just going to say something quickly about a modern show, like Stranger Things. Like I haven't caught up with it for a while. But I do know, I don't think this is a spoiler, because I think they want people to know, so they've told people this is the case. The ending to Stranger Things, there are 3 versions, and you will get a random version in your house.
You told me this, didn't you?
So
that's quite a modern take on not letting people know how it's going to end.
It's an evolution of we're going to film 3 different endings and only use one. Like Corrie did that in the past, where they had not 3, but who does kill Tina.
Well, yeah, and they've had it with trial endings as well, haven't they? They've filmed like Gail's trial.
Well, as we all know, anything that happens is a 50-50 chance.
Thanks, Anthony.
So that's the only way I could think of that they would get away with it now, because there are moles, and it's not just one person. It can't be. I think that now, if you work at Corrie, you can sell a secret to the Sun, because the Sun is the one that leaks it. Yeah,
I think that if they were going to do the tram crash these days, I think more would get out, just because it's the nature of it, and it's so easy to do it with the technology these days.
I mean, the way of doing it now would be to have a live episode where you ad lib. There are sections where you're just ad libbing. I don't think they would ever ask the actors to do this, but only one person would have the scenario that was really going to happen, and everybody else had to just work around it.
That's funny. Just imagine that. On the subject of security, and this isn't the same type of security, but something that happened at the time as well of the live episode was that the Sun, speaking of the devil, ran a front page story saying, "Exclusive soap terror alert, Al-Qaeda Corrie threat, ring of steel at set after tip-off." So
that's
they
a headline
put this.
That just keeps going.
It does a bit, doesn't it? They put this story out there before the live, saying that Al-Qaeda were going to be targeting Corrie to try and spoil the live and blow it up live on TV. And
oh my God, can you imagine?
I know.
No, I'm saying, can you imagine, obviously, Al-Qaeda sitting around and going, how can we ruin the West? How can we bring them to their knees? We've all the terrible things we've done, and they just don't seem to, they just carry on. What can we do? Let's spoil the ending of the live
tram crash,
and then instead of all these elaborate kind of deaths and horrible terrible violence and stuff, it's just a guy who runs in front of the camera and goes, Molly dies, ha, bye. And everyone's like, they've gone too far. Too far.
Yeah, Bin Laden saying, well done, no, you're
excellent, my plan has worked. Finally, I'll bring the British to their knees.
Well, luckily this was not true.
That's funny.
In fact, there was no evidence for the Sun to have even put this story out there.
Do you know what I wonder where this came from? When they did the ITN special reports,
Yeah.
is it Alistair Stewart
Yeah.
was reading, and part of the scenario that he was reading out was that the police were trying to decide whether this was a terror attack.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether somebody got a garbled
I don't know.
thing and said, "Oh, what a terror attack!" At the news is talking about a terror attack. When was this done then?
This was just before, but the Sun have since been made to print an apology about this, and Manchester Police said that we have categorically not been made aware of any threat from Al Qaeda or any prescribed organisation. Quite simply, Granada approached the Greater Manchester Police to inform us that they were employing a private security firm to help ensure tonight's live programme went ahead without outside interference.
never heard
And as part of their operation, they asked for police assistance, and we agreed to deploy a very small number of officers and PCSOs to help patrol the set's perimeter fence. So literally, there were a small number of police officers and PCSOs there strolling around the set, and from that, the Sun allegedly said
it was because of terror attacks.
The
trouble with that is that if you say that, you can manifest it.
Yeah. I know. It was such a stupid thing to do, and I'm glad that they were hauled across the coals for it, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, because you spoke it into reality. You know, it could have given somebody an idea.
Yeah. So the idea
That's
was
terrifying.
in place. The viewers were tantalised. The promo had gone out, and people were getting drip-fed ideas.
And then
everything was nice and secure.
And then they went, "We better think of something.
We better actually do it then, hadn't we? We better actually film this."
Now, I think we have mentioned it, but it kind of always is surprising when I remind myself that they filmed a week's worth of episodes, and the vast majority of them were filmed in advance in the first week of October.
Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday were already in the can by the time the live came around.
And then they carried on filming, and they were going through, and they're getting, they're probably filming some of the January stuff. Then they have to pause and reset everything so that they can do the live episode in the middle of the week to be transmitted on the Thursday.
Yeah,
so they're having to rebuild this set.
I don't think that they were filming anything else in the days running up to the live, because they had to put the tram back on the street the weekend beforehand. So everything that week was gearing up for the live on Thursday, so it was all rehearsals. But the fact that they had to film so much in advance.
They would have had to have banked, and I think they probably had to do the same with Corridale, had to get so far in advance of themselves to give themselves a block where they can just concentrate on one episode. And this is so unlike the workflow for Coronation Street. This doesn't happen. You don't spend a week doing one episode when you've got a whole week's worth of episodes to also transmit.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Phil Collinson said, we usually film 5 episodes in 12 days, but for the 50th, we'll be filming 5 episodes in 10 weeks.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, pace of a big drama, he said. We do all of that, but the rest of the show still has to rumble on. So in the lead up to it, we're having to film lots more episodes, and afterwards as well, so we can keep airing for 5 nights a week. It's huge.
Yeah, and it's not just like a case of, whatever... Let's, make life easy for ourselves. The episodes around this week, we'll just, maybe do some gentle stuff, not too much taxing. We're not going to ask too much of everybody. No, this was the biggest story they'd done in years. And so the beginning and, before and after it, you've got all this high drama and people, being given their best for these, really epic storylines.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It must have been terrifying thinking, what if something happens between October and December, which means that we can't get back on that Thursday? Like, what if one of the actors goes off sick, or what if anything? The fact was that there was a real risk of snow in the week the week of the live the tram crash episode, the live one. It was -9 there in Manchester. There had been snow.
I've never even heard of such a thing.
So what if the days before the tram crash there was no snow, and then there was? It's just mind-boggling.
What were the
the contingency measures
they
put
must
in place?
have had a a really anxious person, they could have asked me to do this. I am worst case scenario girl. If you want to know what's the worst thing that can happen, I'll let you know.
I wonder whether they...
I bet they had somebody like that going, oh my God.
I wonder if they had like a rehearsal version, like a dry run or whatever you call it, ready to wear.
To transmit.
For the whole episode to transmit, just in case, for whatever reason, they couldn't have had the live.
That would have been silly not to. If they could have.
But I mean, the way that Phil Collinson's been talking about it, he's like, let's just go for it. We've seen him saying, I can't remember what it was on. He was like, well, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah, but
you've got to keep your programme going.
You'd say that, wouldn't you? Because you want people... Okay, there's a percentage of people that tune in to see when it's going to go wrong. And that's why they do live episodes. And it is sad, but it's human nature that we're... there wouldn't be any tension in a live if you weren't thinking anything could happen here.
Well, let's talk about the live in a little bit more. But the original filming, so this was October now, first week of October, and the main way that we knew that things were going on was because there were these fireballs coming out from the Quay Street set. So on the Monday, the first Monday of October, the Manchester Evening News, or a photographer from the Manchester Evening News, captured this huge fireball, and they published that. And the Hargreaves, who was the special effects guy, one of the special effects guys, was talking about how there were helicopters flying overhead while they were filming this in October, trying to get pictures.
This is not far off the centre, Manchester city centre.
No.
The Quay Street set was surrounded by the rest of Manchester. It's not like it's quite isolated, although you could see stunts from Media City, from those apartment buildings.
Well, I mean, these days, if people knew that Coronation Street were filming something absolutely huge outside, there would be drones all over the place, wasn't there? And we didn't have them back then, so it was literally helicopters flying over, trying to get a peek of what was going to be Coronation Street's biggest week.
There's that account on Twitter that is the photographer who does Coronation Street Archives, isn't he, Corrie?
Yes.
Is it called Corrie Picks Archive? It's MCPix 100.
Some great stuff on there.
MCPIX 100. And I'm sure they hated this at the time, because he has got a shot of... He says, I'm dangling outside the side of a light aircraft over Granada Studios to see the tram crash
going into the cabin. So by this point, there was absolutely no hiding what was going to happen, which is another reason why I think it was a good idea for Phil Collinson to say, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to be destroyed. But at least the drama and the script was able to be kept relatively secret.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that's what he told everybody.
Yeah,
and did they hate it, or did they actually think, no, this is great for us? Like, you don't want to do a massive 50th anniversary £1 million stunt and nobody cares, and nobody's bothering to try to find stuff out.
Yeah, and on October the 10th, so like a week or so after they were doing this, or started doing the filming, they released to the public the first behind-the-scenes photos, and that showed the back end of the tram going from the viaduct into the cabin. So they were trying to kind of playing along with it and saying, we can't hide this, so here's an official publicity photo of it, just to whet your appetites a little bit more. Speaking of the tram and all the practical effects, and maybe you want to kind of move on to there a little bit now. But I was so impressed by both the practical and the CGI effects in these episodes. So many of the behind-the-scenes stuff we watched has talked about them wanting to make it like a movie, and it really was, wasn't it?
It was. There
was fire, there was smoke, a lot of that was real. Obviously, there was CGI that was used for bits that couldn't be done for real, like you had... There's the shot when the tram's coming off of the tracks and you see Molly's POV of the tram and the tram driver coming straight towards her. That was CGI.
Going brake, yes. Emergency stop.
There was you love that, don't you?
I do.
There was the bit where the back end of the tram goes up into the air and then slams down on the cabin. Obviously, that was CGI as well.
It doesn't look it.
It doesn't. They did such a good job of it.
Maybe it will do when they do, when they have finally the high-res version on ITV3, when the classic finally catches up. I really hope they do something special for when that comes onto.
I bet they won't.
No, I bet they won't. But there's definitely. I feel as though they try to do too much now with CGI, whereas this is a time when they knew
Corrie
what
does.
No, in just Hollywood in general. Like compare. Sorry to bring this up again. Compare the volume wall stunts with, Millie Gibson.
Yeah, and
the wine glass or whatever bottle falling. That was compared to what they managed to do with this tram crash. That looked not as good.
Pretty terrible. This was excellent, but they,
to put another price on it, didn't they say this volume wall was like £1 million?
Yeah. But they did have the Mill working on this, didn't they? And this was
What's the Mill?
This is a post-production company that Phil Collinson had been working on with Doctor Who, and the Mill. It was.
It's like a British company, like special effects.
Yeah, it's still going. I think it's changed names and ownership and things over the years, but they really did get in the big guns for this. The other shot that I absolutely loved that they put together was the wider Weatherfield shots, where they started off the week, but I think they bookended the whole the first episode with this, of panning out from the street and seeing all the surrounding streets, and that's properly epic stuff, isn't it? Because you're kind of led to believe that Coronation Street is nestled among these other terraces, and some of the earlier opening shots did have just pictures of Salford, didn't they? And you're like, oh, Coronation Street could be anywhere in here. But these days, it does feel that little bit more isolated. But to have the very first scene of Monday's episode I think it was Ken and Janice out in the street, and Janice is saying, hey, we're going to be related soon because of Peter and Leanne being married. And then, the camera pans out and you just see all these surrounding streets. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there were people there copying down maps. And I would have been doing that. And then at the very end of the episode, after the tram has gone through,
the end of the week?
The end of the episode.
The live episode?
The first episode. Because when the tram has crashed, you see the same shot again, but it's all kind of a glow from the fire of the tram crash.
And
it was so clever.
We keep the trams on the tracks.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So Collinson had worked with the Mill on Doctor Who, and I think that was one of the reasons why he was able to know who the right people were to talk to get them to work on Coronation Street.
And they kept going, when's the aliens gonna cut? Like, what? Which aliens is this that are doing this? Is this the Daleks gonna come?
No,
is it Cybermen?
Just Metrolink.
Metrolink. What planet are they from?
But some of the secrecy we were talking about earlier about what was going to happen, that even extended to the Mill, because Will Cohen, who was the executive producer at the Mill at the time, who said that they produced 18 shots, I think it was, for the storyline, he was first asked up to Manchester to discuss the idea in June.
Right.
But it was very, very secretive. Yeah. It was he didn't.
So it was a month later that Phil Collinson told everybody we're going to do this big old tram thing. Yeah,
they weren't told very much about what it was going to be, what it was going to be for, when it was going to be. And then in September they had the proper SFX meeting, and we saw some clips of this on the Tram Crash DVD, where you had like Phil Collinson and Will Cohen and some of the others round a table with a little cardboard street, didn't they?
and a little
cardboard tram, and Phil Collinson is there kind of lifting up the tram and saying, right, what I want to happen is for this bit of the tram to go into the shop here, and it's like a little model Corrie. I'd love that.
Imagine.
I wonder where that is now. I bet that's in a bin somewhere.
I know, probably.
And then this one's going to swing round and hit into the cabin, and you've got to make this out of CGI. I hope that works.
A really amazing thing to have at the Corrie experience if they still had it, but like you said, who knows where that's gone. Maybe the Mill's got it. I don't know.
Maybe.
Imagine having a vision, like, imagine it in your head, just as the producer going, and then the tram goes into Devs, and then the end of the tram just like rears up and like crashes down, and then you go and you get somebody to make this happen.
I think they said that there wasn't really anything that they wanted to do special effects wise that they couldn't do.
That's amazing.
It all just worked. And this wider Weatherfield shot was, I think, because the tram crashing into the cabin was very spectacular, obviously, but this was just awestruck. Or striking, I don't know.
Or striking.
Awesome in the true sense of the word. And they had a big crane going up there, which is apparently very, very tricky. But Will Cohen, the mill guy, said it was thrilling to set it in the context of a massive aerial shot and show parts of Weatherfield that people have never seen before. We based a lot of the area on Salford and the terraced houses and back streets.
So cool.
Yeah. So that was your CGI side of things. Practical wise, Danny Hargreaves was the main man in charge. And that's not Danny Hargreaves who opened DNS Hardware with Sally in the early 2000s.
I got
it was just
so
somebody with the
confused by
same
this.
name. This is a real guy called Danny Hargreaves, not the character. He had a company called Real SFX, and they were brought in to create the explosions, the mechanical stunts, all that kind of stuff.
What does SFX mean?
Special effects.
Just special effects.
Yeah, exactly.
So anything that's not computer.
Yeah. So he had all of that kind of stuff.
So like all the stunt suites and things.
That's exactly right. The stunt suites that showered Rita.
Yeah, don't eat these. These are actually stunt suites and they're not edible.
He'd worked on Doctor Who as well, so it was. I just love how it was a kind of a semi-Corrie Doctor Who
we
crossover.
We never spoke
here.
about this when we talked about how Coronation Street has a crossover with Doctor Who.
No, we
but
didn't.
Maybe this was a bit of a missing link.
Yeah. There were over a dozen people working under Hargreaves for the week, whereas normally TV dramas tend to have 2 or 3. So that shows just how much of a massive undertaking it was. And he was approached by Coronation Street back in May 2010, and he was told not much. He said that there was going to be some huge effects, there were going to be a few quick and punchy effects, and apparently there was a bit of a back and forth about, what should we make CGI and what should we not? And they originally were kind of mooting the idea that they were literally going to have a model tram, a real size model tram, up on the viaduct, tug it down, film that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they thought, no, that was probably going to look a bit ropey, so they ended up switching to CGI for that.
They did have a real tram, but it was in situ, wasn't it? It was just left, all the bits of it falling down was computer generated.
But that was still not a real tram. That was still a tram that was specially made for this. And then they also had the scene where the tram...
And you can't eat that either.
You can't eat that, no. They also had the scene where the tram goes into the shop.
Yes.
And then we saw this on the behind-the-scenes footage, don't they? Where they just constructed the front of a tram and they have all these pistons that shoot it there into the shop and stunt Vicky Binns as they're running away from it. It was just brilliant.
But the baby was real.
You can't eat that either.
No, the baby
was not real. Baby was not real. That was one of their many draw babies. This tram was actually built just down the road, apparently. There was a warehouse that was owned by this chap called Eric Crowber.
There's a man there going, there's no demand for stunt trams. I don't know why I opened this business. I feel like we've got to close.
He made many a thing. But
right before Christmas, suddenly I get a big order for a stunt tram and my business continues and we can have turkey.
Oh, thank
Hooray!
goodness. Thank goodness Phil Collinson for putting turkey on Eric Crowther's table. No, apparently he was asked to construct this tram and it took 4 or 5 weeks to build it. They didn't really have much time, and that is quite tight in fake tram building terms. It was constructed...
I wouldn't know how long a tram would take.
It was constructed in parts. So you had the half that crashed into the shop. That was done in 4 sections and then bolted together at the studio.
Oh, wow.
So it was all transported there in bits. And then the other half had to be stronger because that wasn't just being used to crash into something. That had to literally hang off the viaduct and into the shop. So that had to be like super reinforced so that it didn't fall off and actually brain somebody on the set.
Don't want that to happen.
No. So anyway, I just think that the special effects were absolutely incredible. And it wasn't just the big things like that. It was also just, the bits of rubble that were being thrown about everywhere. And when Ashley and Peter and Nick are crawling through the viaduct, you had these stones dropping on them. Rita, fake stunt Rita, had bits thrown upon her as well, didn't they? And then you also had Molly when she was under the rubble as well. And this is going to be a time for to put another little Vicky Binns clip in here, because I asked her about what it was like being trapped underneath that rubble and filming those really memorable scenes. So over to Vicky.
I remember it as clear as day, actually, because the rubble's just made out of foam.
Yeah.
Like incredibly light foam, not made out of anything. And there's always this taste of like jam sweetness on fake blood, as a very specific kind of taste. So it's like all your senses are alive, and then the cameras are, there's quite a lot of cameras on it, and there's a real kind of stillness on the set, and everyone's got their own job to do. So everyone, you know, cameraman, lighting, everything, thinking, just don't mess it up, just don't mess it up. And we'd rehearsed it quite a lot, so it was like, you know, just keeping you cool and doing what we'd done in rehearsal. So yeah, the set would just be quiet, and then we'd have a flashing light, and then it would go red, and we'd start the scene.
So we said before, Danny Hargreaves was responsible for this. He says, I'm very used to creating disasters. It's very normal for me. I wanted to make sure we had those real physical effects and had the characters at the heart of the action. I think it's been challenging in the sense that it's such a high-profile project. Like I said earlier, everyone knows Corrie, and the media interest has been huge. And he also says, with Doctor Who, there's this feeling you can get away with things, like the setting is going to be a spaceship or something. But with this, it had to look real, and that was the main thing.
That's really interesting point, actually, isn't it? You don't know what a spaceship around the other side of the universe is going to look like.
You're not going to go, oh, that's a bit off.
Yeah, that
the physics there doesn't work. Yeah.
Whereas with this, you're right, it had to be grounded.
Yeah.
And Coronation Street has always been grounded very much in reality. As a soap opera, it was supposed to, you know, in some way reflect the day-to-day life of the normal northern folk. And so this was a week that clearly is a little bit out of the ordinary for your usual Salford person. But I think that they still did manage to make it feel like this street that we've known for 50 years has had this awful tragedy happen, and it didn't feel like they were somewhere else. It didn't feel like they were, you know, on a different planet or anything like that. It felt like this wasn't just any old rubble that was falling along Molly. It was literally the corner shot that we'd known since 1960 is now in pieces around her. Yeah,
and it can't look like a Hollywood production. It can't look too slick and, you know, unrealistic. It's got to really look like this is Manchester, you know, this is Salford, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so he also said the difference between working on a film and a TV set is on film you have maybe 5 or 6 attempts to get the shot you want, and here it was only 1. So it has to be perfect first time.
Especially for the live episode, obviously. There was no room for slip-ups there.
God.
I also liked, when one of the interviews that I was watching with him, he said that he's in his good books with his gran. Because I don't know how big of a Doctor Who fan Danny Hargreaves' grandma was, but she definitely liked Corrie, and the fact that he was going to be working on that. Yeah, she probably got an extra Werther's original or 2 for that.
She's probably like, I never thought you'd amount to anything, but now you're working
now you're on Coronation Street.
Coronation Street. I can talk about you down the club.
Someone else who was caught up underneath a big pile of rubble and also didn't make it was Ashley Peacock. And a few years back I spoke to actor Stephen Arnold about his final scenes on Coronation Street and what that was like, being caught up under the joinery, where he was sadly never recovered from. So I'm going to cut to a little clip now of me talking to Stephen about his memories of that scene.
For me, there was no better way to go. I think it did justice for the character. I think he'd had a lot of storylines, you know, really emotional ones. I think he'd done everything he possibly could, really. And I think it was his time, to be fair. Do you know which I mean? I think it was his time to go, and it was just the best way to go. You know, the exit for, you know, the episode just before the live. You know, it was such a privilege to do it, and I really enjoyed that. I thought, you know, I didn't want to leave in the back of a taxi. I thought, if I'm going to go, get killed off and go for it big, and that's what they give me, and it was Bill. I was over the moon with that, to be honest.
Was it hard work to film? I mean, I can't remember how much other kind of, you know, action stunt kind of work that you'd had to do before then.
No, it was different. We had to set up in a different studio for them final scenes, because they had where the studio was. Obviously, got no ceiling, but they had how can I explain it? They just put loads of rubble on the top of these like metal shafts and then tipped them down every now and again to get the effect and stuff, which is really good.
Yeah.
But that's why we had to use a different studio with the dust and all the rubble, and to make it look authentic and make it look real.
Yeah.
It was just great, and working with Ben Price and Chris Gascoigne. You know, Chris was a really good mate of mine on the street, and to do my final scenes with him was brilliant.
Yeah. Would you like to have been able to have the chance to perform in the actual live episode?
I did the live on the 40th, so...
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I wasn't... You know, how it panned out, I think it just works all around, really. So I wasn't thinking, I wish I'd done the live. I'd have been involved in it, of course I would have, but at the time I was just happy with what I had, you know, and the way I was going, so...
Yeah. I think you made an appearance.
I didn't have to get nervous.
I think you made an appearance where your voice did, at least, so they had Claire listening to the voicemail that you'd left her.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's pre-recorded on the live, so yeah.
So up until now, we haven't really talked about the live part of this week, the live episode.
No.
Which was
episode...
a really... Do you think it's a really interesting thing to have added on the top of all the rest of it?
It was very, very brave. The whole week was so ambitious. And then to put a live there, it could have gone wrong.
Do you think they would have done or like thought of doing a live for the 50th if they hadn't done one for the 40th?
It seemed to be something that was kind of happening a little bit more around the time, because I think EastEnders that year had an anniversary, or Emmerdale, I think it was EastEnders, and they'd done a live. Maybe it was like the 25th of EastEnders or something.
Yeah.
So it was almost becoming a little bit of an expectation that soaps did lives for big anniversaries.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tradition that has ended because of COVID. Now...
Although, you know, EastEnders did have their live earlier this year.
In Coronation Street. So you would have thought that they would have wanted to have done something for every multiple attend. So, you know, the 60th, and then they couldn't do that because of COVID. And so maybe they would have done something for the 60th.
Yeah. Well, there was no clue that they wanted to do anything for the 60th. But who knows, because they had to change so much there because of it being in 2020.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't plan something.
They might have had the idea. But
and they also, but they did do Callum's death, which was...
Yeah, that was in 2015.
That was for Grenada.
That was ITV's 60th anniversary, and that was only 5 years later after this one. And to think that we're now 10 years down the line without a snifter of a live episode, it's a bit of a shame, because I think everybody really does love them, but they're such a huge, huge undertaking.
Even the Bill did live episodes.
Yeah, everyone's, you know,
it's a British television soapy tradition.
Yeah.
I'm glad that EastEnders did one.
There were 48 credited cast members in this particular live episode, which was huge compared to what you get in a standard episode. It was kind of almost everyone that wanted to go got a chance to be in this, apart from Stephen Arnold, obviously, as we've just seen. But there was a lot of guest cast as well. I think, like, cast-wise, there was about 65 in total. So the main cast plus all your police officers and your fire officers and everything like that. You had 8 first directors, 5 second directors, all coordinated by this very clever chap called Tony Prescott, who had also been the one to direct the 40th anniversary live episode. So yeah, a huge move. And also, I think credit goes to Jan McVerry, who penned the episode, and she's worked on Coronation Street for a very long time, and it must have been quite a privilege to have had that offered to her.
Yes.
You
spoke to her, didn't you?
Yes. So she's spoken and said, look, we've got we were watching, I think this was on one of the behind the scenes clips, where she was saying at the time that they had very high expectations of our actors, and it was a very different writing experience. She doesn't want to put too much pressure on them for the live, but she knew that, you know, you could pretty much throw anything that you wanted at these guys and they'd be up for the challenge. But I did speak to Jan, you're right, a couple of years ago. So I'm just going to pop in a little clip here of me speaking to her about the ins and outs of writing an episode for live Coronation Street, and whether it was nerve-wracking to be asked to write that episode.
The 50th, honestly, when Phil Collinson rang me up and said that, I nearly fainted. I genuinely did not think that I was going to get it. I didn't think for a second I was going to get it. A brilliant writing team, and you think, I don't know, there's so many other worthy candidates, and you think as well, I mean, Peter Worley was still around, still writing then, and surely they're going to give it to a really safe pair of hands. But I think it was a combination of Phil and Tony Warren also putting a word in, and I don't know, maybe I don't know, you'd have to ask Phil Collinson why, but it was just the greatest gift ever, because as a storyline, I mean, I remember that it was very complex, obviously, because so many different storylines all peaking at the absolute height. I remember writing the scene breakdown and having to colour code it because it was so complex, trying to keep a grip on which storylines. And also it was like writing a stage play, because you also had to factor in, we're not going to be intercutting any of this. We've got to physically give our actors time to run from one bit of the set to the other. So you've got to give them enough time to get across. So logistically, it was really tricky, but it was also so exciting to do. And I think because I suppose I was a bit in between then. I'd been doing the job a long time, but I wasn't quite one of the old timers either. So I remember sitting there and thinking, I could be freaked out by this, but I'm not going to, because I've been doing this job long enough. I know how to do it. I'm just going to enjoy it. And I really, really enjoyed it. And it was a fascinating process, because while they were rehearsing, it became like this living organism, and it would expand and contract. So you'd be getting notes every day saying, we need to cut 2 minutes out, it's too long. Oh, we need to add some more in here. And I remember my daughters were only quite young then, having to go to one of my daughter's school sports. Oh, I know, she was running for the school at somewhere. And I got this message through, you need to write some more material for Norris in the cafe. And I had to, my daughter was running in a race, and I knew I had to be on the sidelines going, come on. So I was like, once she'd done her race, I had to run off to the cafe and write this material and email it through. In fact, I didn't even have my laptop with me. I had to phone it through and dictate it down the phone, because it was all, but it was so exciting. And then the night they were filming it, it was the most nerve-wracking thing going.
So were you there on set?
We were there. Well, we were there in the studio watching it. And I remember just my heart was in my mouth. Like, you sort of can enjoy it, but not really. You're just thinking, just need to get to the end, And we had an amazing producer, Tony Prescott, another Scouser, who was very, very experienced at live broadcasts, like had cut his teeth on doing, Stars in Their Eyes and stuff like that, really big, not just drama, but he'd done a lot of like outside broadcasts and live broadcasts and stuff. So really, really calm in a crisis. And it was just brilliant at the end when we'd wrapped and we're all waiting in the studio, and they carried him in on some of the cast members, because he was beloved of the cast. They carried him in on their shoulders, and it was like Prescott, and it was just this wonderful moment where it felt like, here we are all together, our lovely Corrie family. And we are a Corrie family, and that was the very best of it.
It's really funny because as early as the start of 2010, they hadn't had any plans for a live
apparently
episode.
Apparently not. William Roach was interviewed in April 2010, and he said, we're not going to do a live episode. We did that in the Millennium Year. We don't want to do that again.
Do you think he was just manifesting because he didn't want to do it?
Maybe he was. But then when they said we will have a live one, he said, right, if we're going to have a live, then I want to be the star.
The main one.
I suppose he was, when the tram crashed, he was there, wasn't he?
Oh, he got to stand up
and everyone else was cowering. But he was in the live. He was at the hospital most of the time.
Ken Barlow stands up to transport.
I mean, he did also say though that anyone who said that they enjoyed the live episode are either not telling the truth or they're masochists.
That was about the
that was about the 2000 one.
Yeah.
So he clearly wasn't a fan.
No.
Yeah. So at that stage, Corrie's fans were thinking, okay, it's not going to be alive, but surely they'll do something big to celebrate it.
I think they were like, we can't tell Bill because he's going to kick off.
He's going to kick.
Don't
right
tell
off.
Bill.
Don't want Bill when he's angry.
We're just gonna film it live. We'll just follow him around and hope he doesn't notice that he's in an episode of Coronation Street.
Well, it wasn't until the 8th of August, so this was a month after the big tram crash stunt had been announced on This Morning by Phil Collinson. 8th of August, the People, the newspaper, The People, reported that there'd be a live, and apparently, and the quote was, the cast were told about the live episode at an on-set meeting on Monday, so the previous Monday. Phil Collinson told them it was going to be the biggest TV achievement ever, and he made it crystal clear he wanted no mistakes. He said no one had ever attempted anything as daring as this before. Actors were given the choice to opt out, but got the feeling that to do so would create an extremely bad impression.
Oh no!
I wonder how much of a taskmaster that this Phil Collinson really was, because he comes across as being all very pleasant and like, hey, we can do it in interviews, doesn't he? But then was he like a bit of a grindstone?
Could you get it done by being nice and saying it doesn't matter if you screw it up?
You got to crack that whip, haven't you? And the results speak for themselves, I suppose.
I don't know I don't know what it was like to have as a boss, but this is a very interesting quote, isn't it?
I know, it is, it really is.
Because like you would feel like, I can't say no. I think lots of people have had this at their work, where they kind of feel like the option's been given to you, but if you pick the wrong one.
I don't know whether to believe that bit or not, because I got the impression that for the 2015 live episode, people chose not to or to appear, and it was absolutely fine. I mean, if everybody had said, nah, I don't want to actually, and it just ended up being a one hand, then I think that would have caused a bit of a problem.
You know, we spoke to Vicky Binns, who has got no reason to cover up if she felt like she had been forced to do it. You know, we spoke to some, Jan and Sally are both not going to say anything if they felt anything, I don't think they did, but there were opportunity. There's been ample opportunities for anybody who'd been part of that. Even especially now, considering it's 15 years on, anybody could have rocked up. The Sun could have gone, or the Mail, or anybody, the Mirror could have gone to any of the actors and said, "Did you feel like you were pressured? Did you hate it? Did everyone hate it?" And could have got a quote if there was one to get. I think what a lot of people kind of miss is that loads of the performers on Coronation Street have a background of theatre, or they want to go into theatre, and that's what theatre is. It's live, and so it kind of feels a bit like, it's like Jack P. Shepherd always jokes about one of the questions he hates being asked is, "How do you remember your lines?" Because he's like, well, that is my job. So being asked to do a live, is nerve-wracking, but it also feels a bit like, well, I can do that because that's what I do.
And obviously Coronation Street for the first few months was recorded live once a week as well, so it had a history of it. But I wonder whether if anyone like, say, Vicky or Sally had not wanted to do the live, whether they would have then had to reshuffle the order that things happen in the week, and would they killed off Molly earlier.
Maybe that's what Bill Tarmy said. Not doing the live, and they were like, right, you're dying then, we're going to kill you off the month before.
So it was still a rumour throughout a lot of August 2010 that this live was going to happen. The first official word that I can tell, at least, about the fact that the live was going to happen came from one Keith Duffy, who played Kieran McCarthy on the show.
What a one.
And he said,
to come forward.
He said on the 29th of August that there would be a live episode, and a couple of days later ITV confirmed that was true.
I bet somebody just tricked him.
I wonder whether he let the cat out of the bag there a little bit, and ITV said, well, we suppose we better say it now, I don't know.
There's definitely been a few bits where we've said something to somebody and they probably shouldn't have said anything, so we just didn't mention it.
Phil Collinson, once the cat was out of that bag, said, "I thought we wouldn't go live, but quickly realised we should. I think we can deliver the most spectacular piece of live television people have ever seen. Coronation Street has such a heritage. The first episodes were filmed that way, and we did it 10 years ago. My ambition is for the episode to be like a disaster movie with stunts. It'll be action-packed. I want people to sit at home and think, there's no way they did that live." And it's true, you can watch that and have not a single clue that was live.
I always think there's an energy that you pick up on. There's an excitement that you get with a live that you don't get with anything else. And maybe that's just me because I'm psychic.
It was like we said, just so ambitious. And I don't think any other soap live has done anything quite like that. I mean, we were watching the other day something about the 2015 live episode, and the fact that they wanted to have a scene where they had, I think it was a Jason on the street for a bit of it, and then they had him down the road filming a car exploding, and it was a risk. They had to get him from Media City to wherever they exploded this car, and if that went wrong, then what were they going to do? But this whole thing was so much more ambitious than that was.
Well, I mean,
just spectacular, and they didn't have to do it, but he had that vision, and he he certainly followed through.
Well, he spoke to the press later in the year and said, look, it was always going to be live, but we didn't know when to tell
He did.
you.
Yeah, so I don't
I
know.
don't believe for 1 minute that you got to August before you went, let's make this live, after you'd already spoken to the SFX and the CGI people, because that would have been part of the logistics.
That's
you couldn't have gone, oh, how about we film a bit of it at a completely different time.
Well, I remember from watching Doctor Who back in the day,
All the live
when he was
episodes of
charged.
Doctor Who?
No. Just that Russell T Davies always used to lie all the time to cover up spoilers and things, and maybe Phil Collinson.
I don't mind that.
No,
I mean,
I
I did get my knickers in a twist about the Joel stuff and saying, oh, don't fib to us, I don't like it, but it's part of, flim flammery, isn't it? Being an entertainer is like, I said, actors are professional liars, so why not the production team as well? But he also said, about, that's what the live's about. If it snows, we'll plough on. If something falls out of the sky, this is Phil Collinson, we'll plough on regardless. And if the tram falls down, we'll plough on. And if any of those things happen, the audience will enjoy it even more. That's the business of live, and that's what we're embracing.
Saying that he knows that we'll love it if something goes wrong, but they'll just carry on and do it. Just imagine.
I challenge now Doctor Who, if Russell T Davies is listening to this, which, high chance, do a live episode of Doctor Who.
I think just do an episode of Doctor Who at this point would be a flipping miracle. Should we hear from Becky Hindley, who played Charlotte Hoyle, because she spoke to me about what it was like, kind of the logistics of the live episode and getting all ready for this. So let's hear what Becky has to say about a particularly memorable scene for her in the live episode.
I was just pulled around all the ginnels at the back of Coronation Street on the cobbles. And I remember I had a little skateboard that was attached.
I was going to ask about that
to my back, so that it was obviously I didn't get hurt. Please, thank you very much. But also it was easy for Graham, the actor, to pull me along the cobbles. So I was on wheels. I had little wheels on my back, and he was pulling me along. So it was a lot of fun. It was incredible actually to be part of that. I mean, it was so atmospheric. There was a lot of dry ice. The crew were absolutely incredible, and it was just a very, very exciting time. People were hidden round corners on little walkie-talkies going like go, and it was really, really exciting and such a wonderful thing to be part of.
It's really funny to imagine this like super important and everyone's like worked really hard and it's so serious and they've had all these CGI and special effects and stuff, and then you've got an actress being pulled on a skateboard.
I know, I love that. I love that scene. I'm glad for her though. I mean, we've seen a fake body being dragged on Coronation Street before, haven't we, with Stephen Reed's one of his victims, and having a real live person on a skateboard, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I was finding some other ways that they tried to make sure that this live episode went according to plan, and one of them was that reportedly there was an alcohol ban for all cast members in the 24 hours before the live.
But how are you supposed to loosen up those nerves?
Yeah, well, you don't want to risk a hangover, do you? I wonder whether there's anybody that tried to get away with that.
Well, we won't know.
We won't speculate, will we? No. There was also a sweepstakes reportedly running among the cast and crew about who's going to fluff their lines. And
but they put
a dampener on that. I think Phil Collinson was like, nope, you're not doing that. You need to take this seriously.
It's not funny.
Not funny, no, exactly. But it all came to plan and everything went well. And not just that the live episode went without a hitch, but it also got massive viewing figures. So 14 million viewers on average watched this episode. It peaked at 14.9, and that would have been the highest audience that the show had had for 7 years.
That's incredible.
I mean, no way if Corrie were to do a live episode now would it get 14.9 million. I mean, it might top like 5 possibly.
Well,
I don't
it depends
know.
on what they threaten could go wrong.
I suppose so. But yeah, this was 2010 was the first year since 2003 that the viewing figures on average for the year had gone up, which was great, and because around then the viewing figures were roughly 7 to 10 million. So this live episode, 4, 5, 6 million on top of what they were usually getting, which is fantastic. And after 2010, the highest rated episode of any year for Coronation Street.
Highest rated or highest watched?
Watched, yeah. It didn't top 12 million. And after 2013, it didn't even top 10. So we've been into the realm of single digits on Coronation Street viewing figures for the past over 10
Decade,
years now. Yeah, I mean last year the highest was 14.9 million. This year
4.9.
Sorry, 4.9 million. They'd love 14.9. 4.9 million this year, 4.8 million so far, so it's definitely a far cry away. Maybe they need to throw in an extra live episode now just to try and top it back up again.
Well, you know, we've had many discussions about what does that really mean, and just to remind everybody that very few things get anywhere near that.
Well, yeah, exactly. You get your Strictly finals and you get your big football matches, don't you? So
and everyone's just watching those to see when the tram comes.
Yeah, but they had to get it right. So the rehearsals were there and played their rehearsal for like 2 weeks beforehand. They had a big table.
This was bonkers because I've never seen them do this.
This
before.
was on the DVD, wasn't it?
And it was an enormous. It was like a basketball court of like people sitting around a giant square table.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like a ring of tables around a square. And I've never seen anything like that. Yeah. It's great.
We've seen table reads things like Game of Thrones behind the scenes.
Even that I don't think was as big as this. Because obviously, what did you say, 48 cast members?
Yeah. To squeeze them all in. And let's cut to Sally Dynevor again, telling us a little bit about her memories of the live episode, the filming of it, but also the prep for it too.
Do you know, Michael, that was my favourite episode on Coronation Street ever. I mean, it was the most exciting thing that we've done on Coronation Street. It was so exciting because those stunts were quite incredible and it was just amazing. And I was with Vicky Binns, obviously, in the corner shop, and all those scenes were, you know, we were nervous and scared and worried about it, but you know, it went so well that so many people said to me, that wasn't live. I was like, it was live. It was, you know, it was an incredible time. Everybody, the crew worked so incredibly hard. I think there was 600 crew working on that one episode because every set had a cameraman and, you know, floor assistants and makeup and everyone was there, and it was quite tricky logistically to run from one set to the next to make sure you were there in time, you know, for your next scene. And we rehearsed it, which was incredible. I think we had like 2 weeks rehearsals where you'd be, you know, running one, OSM would run you from one set to another set for the start of your next scene, and we were all running past each other in the street, you know, going off to different sets. It was really exciting.
Yeah. And it must have been like, when it was actually came to it, you must have had to think, and this has got to be my best take.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it was funny because Jane Danson and I and Ali King, I think, as well, we actually couldn't talk. Everyone was so excited before it started, and we just couldn't talk. We just didn't want to talk to anybody. We were so nervous that we couldn't sort of enjoy that sort of moment. But then at the end, when we'd done it, everyone was so happy and so excited. It was my most memorable, wonderful time on Coronation Street ever.
I mean, it might also be the last time that the nation stopped for Corrie.
Yes, I you know, quite possibly was.
And it was all, you know, all of the stuff that Phil Collinson had done to hype it up, talking about how we're going to do it and telling everybody months in advance, and all the bookies and the bets of who's going to go, who's going to stay, and everyone talking about the secrecy. But there were also lots of promos that they produced to make sure that people wanted to watch this.
Exactly. In the weeks running up to it, they ramped up the promotion, obviously, because they'd spent an awful lot of money and they needed to make sure that people were going to watch it. So I spoke earlier about this press screening they did, and this was on Friday the 3rd of December, so just the weekend, the week before this would air. And Daniel Kilkelly wrote a piece for Digital Spy afterwards with a few teasers from it. So he mentioned about the wider Weatherfield shot. He gave praise for Leanne and Carla in it, Molly's bombshell at the beginning of the week. So people were reading Digital Spy at the time were like, okay, this is sounding good, it's looking positive. So yeah, they basically everyone was shown Monday's episode, and then there was a trailer for the rest of the week. So I think a lot of the actors, probably most of the actors, if not all of them, hadn't seen what Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday's episodes had looked like. It's so exciting. And
so they showed Monday's episode with the tram crash, and then they had a trailer for the rest of the week.
Yeah, for the cast and the crew and the press, exactly. And William Roach came out at the screening and he said, it was the most incredible scene in British television history. I'm incredibly proud and privileged to have been involved. He's changed his tune a bit, hasn't he? Coronation Street, well, no, from saying I didn't want to do a live.
Oh, okay.
So, I know this wasn't the live he was talking about here.
But no, I mean, he was, for the beginning of the year saying we're not going to do another one of those to this is the most amazing thing that has ever happened.
Talking about the stunt, of course. Yeah. He says Coronation Street has a history of amazing drama and tension, but this is on another level entirely. We did the train crash way back in the 60s, and that didn't have half the impact. Now we have the best teams of experts in every field. Everyone from the past would have been really proud that we've got to this point.
That's a really nice thing to say.
Yeah, it is. And Mike Lavelle was in agreement saying that this is a fitting tribute to the show. This is as good as a Hollywood film. And,
Yeah, and you think...
You can't... It's hard to disagree with some of that. It didn't have quite the same, film stock or anything, but you wouldn't want that. I think when you compare it to other high production dramas that are produced by not just British studios, but the likes of, ABC and all that, it really did go toe-to-toe with them, I would say.
And I'm glad that Tony Warren got to see this. There's no record of what he thought.
Not that I could find. I'm sure that it was
that's
out there
a good
somewhere.
Thing or a bad thing, but he was
I'm
there.
sure
he got to
thought it was
see.
great.
He saw what he was able to achieve in the 60s with this, and then he got to see, how the futuristic technology, the computers, and
just imagine
how mind-boggling it and it makes you wonder what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah,
it really does.
It is one of those things like, going back to Doctor Who, it reminds me of the Van Gogh episode where he was brought to the future and finds out what everyone thinks about his work, and what if you'd have taken a young Tony Warren back in 1960 who was saying, we're going to have, a dozen episodes of this show, and then showing him, this is where it's going to be in 50 years' time.
I just love that quote from William Roach. Everyone from the past would have been really proud.
I think so.
It's really lovely to imagine. I bet some of them would have hated it.
You mentioned the promos that they did earlier, and there was a couple, and Coronation Street doesn't really do this anymore, but they had some specially filmed promo adverts, trailers exactly for this, and you can watch this on YouTube. It was released in November, so the month before it, just to get people excited, and I thought I really enjoyed this. I've not actually spoken to you about it. I showed you the other day, didn't I? But it was basically lots of happy couples and characters on the street, and it was very kind of Vaseline lensy. Isn't it a wonderful, glorious, sunny day? You got Roy and Hayley getting off a bus. You got Sean and Sophie. I thought it was funny because I wanted the behind the scenes. They did a behind the scenes of the trailer, and Sacha Parkinson said, we can't have Sophie and Sean kissing in the trailer because it's going to be on before the watershed or something.
Can't have two ladies.
You had the McDonald's there with Max. You had Rita smiling out the cabin, and
this was to the song "The Street Where You Live."
The Street Where You Live,
which has this very retro feel, and everything feels very cozy and safe.
And then you get these little mini snippets, don't you, of police rushing down the road and firemen going down the pole and paramedics pouting out of the
blues and twos,
just for half a second, and then it's back to the street. It was really effective.
It's almost like you're unconscious on the street and you're dreaming of a world where everything's happy, and then you keep waking up to reality and realising that a tram's landed on you.
Yeah, and it didn't really give anything away about what would happen, but it was enough to... It was just so unsettling.
Like you might...
As a trailer, something's going to go wrong here.
And these people are going to be in it.
Yeah, this is going to wreck their lives, which is exactly what the impression is they wanted to get.
Really good.
And then it ends with this 4 funerals and a wedding tagline. I also thought it was really clever how outside the corner shop, where they had Dev and Sunita... they had lilies, funeral lilies, where the flowers are, and it's like a blink and you miss it moment.
I thought they were poinsettias until you pointed it out.
No, I didn't spot it myself. It was on the behind the scenes they mentioned it, but that was really
because
really
it's all
clever.
Christmassy as well. I mean, we haven't even mentioned that this is you can obviously have worked it out because it's at the beginning of December, but things are dressed for Christmas. You've got, we mentioned in the previous episode where we talked about the plot that the wreath falls off of the door when Charlotte Hoyle is attacked with a hammer, and I think it was just Random Thoughts that said made a joke on Twitter about the Tram Crash basically being a Christmas movie. If Die Hard's a Christmas movie, then the Tram Crash week is as well.
That's funny,
And I love that idea that they've also got their very own action movie.
But this trailer was good because at this point, as we said earlier, people were in full-on speculation mode about who was going to die, and putting these characters, most of them beloved characters, in the trailer makes you think, who here is gonna?
Yeah.
Is somebody here gonna pop their clogs? Because
you
you had Molly and
actually nobody.
There was a bit with Molly and Sally looking at Jack in the in his buggy, and then
Molly
Kevin.
was there.
Yeah, that's what I said. Molly.
Yeah,
and
I know. I'm just reminding
Sally,
myself.
and then Kevin is there watching from the garage, looking on, knowing, I know that's my kid. It was really, really.
She was the
cleverly
only
done.
one who died that was in the trailer.
Yeah, I don't think Ashley's in the trailer, but I might be wrong. I can't remember.
I don't even think Peter was in the trailer.
I don't remember, but I know that Nick and Leanne were in it. Yeah. There was also. Yeah, there was this 5-minute long making of, which if you're interested in all this stuff, I would recommend trying to hunt down as well. If only for the line which starts off with Julie Hesmanhouse introducing herself, saying, "I'm Julie Hesmanhouse, she plays Hayley," and then David Nielsen says, "And I'm David Nielsen, who doesn't." He's so funny.
Such a card.
Yeah, this was kind of filmed in the September beforehand. There was a film crew from London who came up to do this promo on 35mm film, and just really, really good promo for getting people excited about something tragic that's going to happen.
The best promos are the ones that don't use footage from the episode.
I think you're right.
You don't spoil anything.
No, exactly.
And it shows you've spent money and time, and you've invested. This is the thing. I want the show to invest in itself in the way that it asks me to. And this feels like Coronation Street investing in itself, being proud of itself. I'm not saying they don't do it now. I don't think they've got the budget though.
I think that's the problem.
I think ITV
I
doesn't appreciate. I've said that before.
You have. There was also a little trailer. I don't know when this was put out, but it had clips from the week. It was like 2-minute trailer with I think it was on the website because they did lots with their digital push around this time. But there was like 2 minutes.
the Coronation Street website.
Yeah, I know exactly. There was a 2-minute push, a 2-minute trailer. Sorry, with like slow-mo character reactions of things, people crying, people like going, "Get him out, Cheryl!"
No, smoke.
Lots of cuts of characters under the rubble. I think it was probably a bit spoilery. It's the sort of thing that I wouldn't want to have seen.
Yeah,
but
they
I get
rubble,
why they put it out there, because
rubble
people,
falling on Ashley, which gives kind of it away a bit.
It does a little bit. But yeah, like I was saying, there was this really big digital media push at that time. And this was before the likes of Twitter probably really kicked off.
Well, they had Twitter because we watched the like I said, the ITV live that they did with Anthony Cotton and Forgotten the Guy, Stephen Mulhern.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And it was like let's update, and we're back to the studio.
So this was on ITV2
with audiences' reactions.
The after the Monday episode, audiences' reactions, and who's going to
die.
Yeah.
What do you think's happening? And they had like a ticker across the bottom with Twitter and Facebook reactions, didn't they, to what was going on? And this was like the biggest.
This is still available on YouTube as well, by the way.
This was like the biggest push that they'd done digitally. We're trying to integrate the internet.
Yeah, because they had the little tickers along the bottom with the Twitter.
And we were talking about it too, weren't we? And I said to you, I don't think they need to do this anymore. I think we, not us personally, but the fandom, we do this for them. They don't need to kind of encourage us to write in. Tweet about Corrie, because then Stephen Mulhern might read it out. We tweet anyway. We tweet about everything. We tweet when we hate it. We tweet when we love it. We tweet when something funny happened. So, did this kind of did this pave the way for the fandom that Corrie became?
Maybe. Well, we were looking at
riding a wave of inevitability.
We were looking at the Twitter handles, weren't we, and seeing if anyone we noticed, and there wasn't. But it's quite a fun little. It's about an hour or so, isn't it, to watch? And it's got some interviews with like Samia Longchambon or Samia Smith, as she was back then.
They were doing a rehearsal, I think, on the Monday, because they had the Thursday live, and I think that they were around. At the time they were doing this, 10 p.m. they filmed this. They recorded this live, and so they could cut to people and go, "How you doing?
Yeah,
what you up to?"
Yeah, that's right.
Because they had to do it at night,
Yeah.
although it's it's night at 4
Well,
p.m.
there's some of the rehearsals that they were doing is like 4 o'clock in the morning. They were saying, I think, as part of this.
I don't
there
think
was
I
also
do that.
They had Alan Halsall was interviewed there by Stephen. They had Phil Collinson was there for just for a little bit. They had a grill Phil segment, didn't they, where people from
Oh,
the
God.
audience could ask him questions that he just didn't really answer.
Yep.
Because why would you and
None of your
risk spoiling
business.
things? Although they kind of almost did spoil things with Charlotte Hoyle, didn't they? There's a bit towards the end where they're all sitting on a sofa together and Anthony kind of pipes up when they're talking about Charlotte and says, "But is she dead?" And
Yeah.
you can almost kind of see Phil Collinson like going, "Shut up," because but he's very clever. He says, "Is she dead? She got a hammer to the head." And Stephen's like, "Oh, so she is dead, isn't she?" So Phil kind of saves things there.
And Anthony Cotton's got his script in his pocket because he said, he says the thing about you've got your secret script with your name on it, and
Yeah.
you've got to keep it to yourself. And he reads out because he gets the first line of the
Yes,
line, so
yeah.
he performs that for everybody.
That whole episode,
which is oh no, no, I don't
that
know.
whole episode was a little bit like what they did after the Joel death last
Yes.
year, where they had Murder on the Streets, but to
Yeah.
on a much bigger scale because they had the whole studio audience. It was a bit like Big Brother's Bit on the Side,
Yes, it was,
wasn't it? Like,
I
but
really,
for
do you know
Corrie.
what? Bring that back.
It just makes me again think if we'd been doing the podcast then, like, would we want to be in the audience then?
No, we
I
wouldn't
don't
have been
know.
invited, but we would have been mad about it.
There was also I want to talk about the tram crash news flash that they did as well, but going back to what we were saying about the digital media, they would put loads of stuff on their website. This was reportedly ITV's biggest digital push ever.
For anything.
Yeah, exactly. They had, like, just even the week before, for the 50th, they'd had the Gary's Army Diaries on their website in like 3 parts, which is a spin-off of him in Afghanistan. There was a little video called Ken, A Life on the Street, which is him
God, that was
making a
excruciating.
jigsaw with Simon and using it as an opportunity for a bit of a clip show.
Oh God, we
What?
watched that and it was just—it's on the Tram Crash DVD, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just him going, "I remember when I had when my mum died, she was killed by a bus." And Simon's like, "I don't care, give me the jigsaw puzzle."
It wasn't too bad, but it was a little twee.
It was very, very, I don't know. It felt a bit too.
It was just nice
on the
that they-
nose.
Nice that
I mean,
they did it.
they invested in the show.
Yeah, they also had running at the time. This is when they had this Coronation Facebook game, which I loved.
I was gonna say,
which
you
was
loved this.
it was very, very simply done compared to other
It was a Facebook
town
game,
builders that were
which-
about at the time.
I don't know
But
if Facebook games are really popular anymore.
No, I don't
but
know. It's
they were all
Farmville
the
still a
rage,
thing.
weren't
So
they?
you could build your own Coronation Street and buy characters to put on the street and send them off to do jobs and whatnot. And it only run until about June,
Next year.
June 2011 or something. So it
was
wasn't,
like
wasn't even
7 or
online
8
for
months.
a year. But during the tram crash week, they changed it so that there was a tram in the middle of the street.
I remember
so
fire everywhere.
Yeah, so they updated that to be in line with it. It's really, really clever stuff. But yeah, this tram crash news flash, I think, is what most people remember, and that's all available on the DVD too, isn't it? I think
It's probably on you. I think it's on YouTube.
yeah, it is on YouTube. So do you
I think
want
I
to?
remember one of the things I really remember, and I wish that we had the chance to talk to more of the cast about the tram crash week, because I know that Molly Gallagher's a massive fan and she watched it.
Yeah,
on
she
YouTube.
told that she's spoken
and
to us about that,
we
hasn't
told
she?
her that these news flashes existed because she didn't know.
Mm.
So this is like a supplementary material that you might not know existed if you've only seen the
Do you
episode.
want to talk a bit about what it is for anyone else that
Well,
doesn't know?
so it's like it's ITN, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's Alistair Stewart who is the newsreader, and he was a real newsreader in this country, very, very popular. And he is sort of reporting like, I've got unsubstantiated claims here of there's been a crash in a part of, as he say, Salford, and there's been a street has been impacted. We're not sure yet if it's terrorism.
Yes.
We're gonna have to speak to the police are still investigating it.
And this was all put online. I don't think it was on TV, but I might be wrong. Nightly, wasn't it? From Monday to
Yes.
Friday, there were like little updates, and this
Yes.
was all written by Ellen Taylor.
I love that Ellen Taylor wrote this.
Who was one of the? I think she was the first Corrie writer that we interviewed on the podcast, and she wrote just recently the Big Debbie Women's Night Out episode.
Yes.
The first half of it, and this
this
was her
was-
first
yes.
thing that she wrote for
Her first
Coronation
gig.
Street. Yeah. A few weeks later, her first proper episode aired on TV.
Yeah, she probably would have
wrote,
written that
so
before.
she would have written that before. But yeah, this was the first time we got to see Ellen, and it was just a really fun kind of side content that you could enjoy.
Oh, this is great. So Caroline Whitmore is the woman on the street, isn't she? She's been dispatched by Alistair Stewart in the control room to go to Weatherfield to find out what the heck is going on. And so she's there and she's interviewing people who are residents of the streets, the actors, and first person she speaks to is Anna, who's like, oh, I don't know what's happened, oh gosh, what do you mean, I've just nipped off to the shops, and she sort of runs away. And then they have another section where there's news helicopter pictures, and you got
I loved that they had like helicopter shots over the top.
Yeah, they do that. You've got
helicopter.
Caroline Whitmore outside the Rovers saying, "Oh, I've got information that there are 3 men trapped, and there's a mother and a baby are missing." And then she interviews Norris, and they keep saying, "Oh, it's a good job nobody's in the cabin. Nobody knows that Rita's in there.
Yeah,
she's fine. It's all fine." And I love also when, and this is just Ellen Taylor, like, she obviously knew the show so well and was so confident even in her first her debut. You've got this journalist nabbing Julie, and she's like, "Oh, we've got somebody here, Julie Carter," and she's like, "Oh, that's not my name."
Yeah,
that
I think she corrects her later on in the week, doesn't she?
Yeah, there's another bit where she tells her, "It's not actually. My name's Julie Carp."
They
had a phone number that you could call in for tips.
I know. I wonder whether anybody.
I nearly phoned it up, but I was too scared.
Hayley gets interviewed as well, doesn't she? Sort of by the cabin, which is obviously set up as a food.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, we're
centre.
sort of like helping people and giving out." I think she says something about giving out alcohol or brandy, and she says, "Oh, we're not actually licensed to sell alcohol, but it's a medical emergency."
I was really impressed with Jason, with Ryan Thomas's performance.
He was great,
actually, because he's just there.
Yeah, this was the fourth segment.
Yeah,
because she's like, "I'm here with Jason, who has rescued Simon," and she's like,
and he's just very much in shock, but also like, I don't know what to do on camera. I can't speak on camera. He did a really good job of just
being shell shocked.
Yeah.
And kind of confused.
Yeah, and then it just kind of it ends on the week with John State phoning in, doesn't he?
Yes.
Phoning into the studios.
Like witness, yeah, that's right.
As the person who, started off the week by bumping off Charlotte to finish off these extra bits with him phoning in, and because he's asked by the newsreader, how's the news of the deaths of the street affected you, and he's like, "Oh, I'm very sad about everyone's losses, but I'd rather not focus on that if you don't mind."
Yeah, because he was the father of the baby that's just been born, isn't he?
But also the killer
murderer
of one of the victims. It was really neatly put together thing, and it sounds a bit silly maybe, but
it's so clever.
Love it.
And it was probably the longest sort, because on the DVD there's lots of little segments, and they're only a couple of minutes, 5 minutes max.
Yeah.
And this was like half an hour's worth of Alistair Stewart going, "I don't know why, but you pay me to pretend that this is real, so I will."
He
played it
fair
completely.
play to him. He did it completely straight.
Yeah.
It could be believable.
Well, it's probably he's like, as far as I'm concerned, everything that anyone says to me is a lie, so I just read what you tell me.
So they just did so much for the 50th. Because that was all there for the tram crash, but they'd also had the road to Coronation Street a couple of months before, which was the dramatisation of how Corrie first started.
So we're at the 65th, right?
Yeah.
I think that the 75th will be the next big thing.
But I don't think it'll be as big as this. 50 just sounds huge. Nothing,
I think
100
is maybe
good. If it makes it that long. But you had the Road to Coronation Street, you had another DVD, The Knight's Tale, you had your 50 Years, 50 Moments, which is a 2-part tribute programme. You had a quiz, you had the Corrie stage play in 2010 written by Jonathan Harvey, which toured across the country. I can't believe we didn't go and see it. There was just so much that they put together to celebrate this massive anniversary, and it all just came together quite perfectly, I would say.
They had the Tracy coming back as well.
Oh yeah, that was at the end of the Corrie Live. They had the little snippet of Tracy coming back. Felt like just such a buzz and excitement.
Yeah, and obviously
that people had for Coronation Street at that time, all wrapped up in this disaster of the tram crash.
And I mean, maybe we're expecting too much, because the heyday of Coronation Street is if you're comparing audience figures, 14.9 compared to
4.9.
Yeah, it's a bit less, isn't it?
A little bit less. That isn't a smaller number, correct?
What can you do?
I don't want to end this on a downer, but I think we've pretty much reached the end of
It's not a
everything that we've
downer.
got to say about Coronation Street tram crash, have we?
Yeah.
There is the tram crash DVD out there if anyone wants to buy it. A lot of what we talked about today comes from that. There's a couple there's a little Goodbye Ashley documentary, which is, by the by. There was
My favourite bit of this was Craig Charles, who played Lloyd, narrating
Oh yes, that was great.
50 years of Corrie stunts, which is 5 minutes of him just sarcastically ripping the pee out of all of the stunts up until this point.
Yeah, they showed like the tram crash or the train crash from '67, and he was just
That's a
making
pile of crap,
fun of.
isn't it? Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we did that now? What a load of rubbish!
Yeah,
and he kept
that
going,
is-
"Oh, it'd be a good idea if they did a stunt that they actually showed on screen, wouldn't it?"
Yes.
They had such a different attitude to Coronation Street. I don't think that they would do that now. I think that they were much more tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, whereas now I think
it was the fact that it was Craig Charles as well with his comic roots.
all of the official stuff is really reverential and like very po-faced now, isn't it? Because I
It's
think
all
it's
about issues.
I
these
think it's
days,
because
isn't it?
ITV is kind of put, clamped it down on it a bit more.
I do wonder. Right, shall we end it there? That was basically how they made the tram crash, just in case you didn't know.
It wasn't a
There's
real
probably-
tram. That's
there's-
the headline.
I mean, there's so much more that was put into it than we could have mentioned here. We just did, I spent my Sunday morning doing a bit of research and finding what I could find. We watched the tram crash DVD. We got those interview snippets, but I think it's enough.
I want to say that so this is the 15th anniversary of that happening. For the 20th, my prayer and hope to ITV/Coronation Street/ITV Studios is to do a 20th anniversary true crime documentary
Oh, here we go.
about the tram crash, like it's a Netflix, like one of the Ghost Train documentary or something, where you get the actors back in the studio and you make them, they're all in character and they're talking about, I remember when this happened, I couldn't believe it, like it's real. And then you could cut to like the tram driver, you could have him come in, and you could have like Paul, what's his face, the
Paul Kershaw.
going, I remember,
It's hard, isn't it? Because like,
How cool would that be?
How much should
That
Coronation
would cost a lot of
Street
money.
be stuck in the past? Would people just say, "Oh, they're just trying to rake up old glories because they can't do it these days"? I don't know.
I would love it if I was an eccentric billionaire. This would be the sort of thing I would spend a bit of cash on.
You would think maybe that there might be people who might remember the anniversaries of the biggest disaster that's ever happened on Coronation Street, but there's so many disasters that happen these days.
No,
that
but if
it's
this
kind
was
of
a
ten
real,
penny, aren't they?
if this was a real thing that actually happened in real life, I don't doubt that there would be a 20th anniversary retrospective of the tram crash disaster of Weatherfield.
Well, there we go. You've got 5 years to get on that Coronation Street, haven't you?
Just an idea, but who else thinks that would be absolutely delicious?
Right, thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you've stayed with us to the bitter end. I suppose if you're listening to this, you have.
I thought that was a good episode.
Please, I really enjoyed that. It was great. I mean, this week and last week, reminiscing over the tram crash, which we always said was good, but we, as I said, hadn't watched again until really recently.
And thank you so much to all of the people we've given extracts of their interviews today. And if you enjoyed listening to these excerpts of the interviews, don't forget that they're all available. If you go to coronationstreet.podbean.com, you can go to the interview section and find where we talk to them, or you can go on YouTube and find them in their entirety.
Exactly.
And listen to the whole conversation.
Yes, and the Becky Hindley interview we will be putting up on full later this month, hopefully. So you've had a little bit of a tease from it this evening. Hope you look forward to the real thing, because she was a real hoot.
She's great.
Really, really lovely
Brilliant.
to speak to. Keep your eyes out for that. Right, time to go, Gemma.
Yep.
Ta-ra for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.